Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is the Blade Breaker's Daughters in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 51, Blue Lion Blues. It felt kind of mean to even think it, but Shay was really starting to dislike being in the Blue Lion's classroom. After a week of being scared her sister would never wake up, the relief she felt at seeing Byleth open her eyes again was pretty soundly smothered by the heavy atmosphere that settled over everything once their next mission was announced. Apparently a group of bandits managed to steal a relic from a noble house. That wasn't too bad, in Shay's opinion, really. It sounded like the start off to a fun story. The problem was that the relic was a crest weapon, specifically one called the Lance of Ruin, and it had been stolen from House Gautier, otherwise known as Sylvain's family. And not only that, but the leader of said bandits happened to be Sylvain's older brother Miquelon. The one he'd told her about. Speaking of Shay and Sylvain, well, they didn't really talk now. Things had already been rocky after he thought it was a good idea to spill all his problems on Shay and then threaten her sister in the same breath, but then Byleth actually got hurt and, well, call it bad timing, but Shay didn't really want to interact with him after that point. Not when she couldn't help but see him as a genuine threat to her sister's well-being. To be fair to Sylvain, he at least recognized there was a problem and kept his distance too, but that just led to everyone else noticing their problem, and apparently that meant they all needed to have an opinion on the subject. The worst was Ingrid trying to apologize on Sylvain's behalf because she thought he'd tried flirting with Shay again. It was an awkward conversation, to say the least, especially because Shay wasn't comfortable actually sharing what Sylvain said with how private most of it was. So yeah, there was one friendship potentially ruined, and right as the mission of the month was basically focused on the guy in question. Shay? Are you feeling okay? Mercedes asked, sounding concerned. You seem to be staring into your tea. Just thinking. The mission this month seems pretty big, huh? Yes, it does. I knew Sylvain didn't have the best relationship with his family, but I never thought his father would request his class to handle his brother. Mercedes muttered. Hey, do either of you two know about the knight we'll be working with? Shay asked, wanting to change the subject away from Sylvain. Yeah, I think I do. Annette answered. I saw him earlier, but he ran away after he saw me. Wait, really? Why would he run away? That knight, he's my father, she admitted. He's using a different name, but I'm certain he is. Shay blinked. Huh. Not trying to be rude, but that doesn't explain why he ran away. No, it's okay, I can understand why you would ask. After the tragedy of Duscur, my father blamed himself for not being able to save the king. He left my mother and I behind. I didn't know where he went to, but I knew the church took in knights like him, and now I found him. Oh, Annie, that's wonderful, Mercedes said, smiling happily at the news. Shay, meanwhile, had a confused frown. That sounds great, but didn't you just say he ran away from you? Yeah. I don't know why, but he's been avoiding me. Even before now, he hasn't contacted me or mother, but he can't keep running forever. I'll make sure to bring him back home so he can apologize to Mom. Do you want me to beat him up? Huh. It seemed that surprised both Mercedes and Annette with how shocked they looked. Shay, I'm not certain how that could help. Well, her dad left without a word, yeah? I might not know everything going on, but it sounds shitty that he's avoiding you. So if I beat him up he won't be able to run away, so you can talk to him, or just drag him home. Thank you for the offer, Shay, but I don't know if that'll help. Father might be old, but he's still a knight, so I would hate for you to get hurt. I'm sure I can take him on, but fine. Still, if you need any help, feel free to ask. Parents should look out for their kids, and he has a lot to make up for if he's actually been gone for a bunch of years. Well, I appreciate the offer, so thanks, Shay. Who knows, if he proves to be a hassle I might just take you up on it, Annette jokingly said. Just say the word. Shay, a word please. Glancing up, Shay found Dimitri standing nearby with Dida behind him. Oh, sure. A bit confused, Shay set down her cup, before getting up. Thanks for the tea, Mercedes, Annette. See you later, Shay. Always a pleasure. Waving goodbye to the two, Shay followed behind Dmitri as he led her somewhere to speak. How are you doing, Shay? Dmitri asked once they found a quiet location. Okay I guess. I'm glad Byleth is awake at least. Yes, it's good to hear she's recovering, though I'm truly sorry we weren't able to arrive faster. No need to apologize, she replied, deciding not to mention that this wasn't the first time Dmitri had apologized for it. We just gotta make sure to get there on time next time. Yes, well, that does bring me up to what I wanted to talk about. As I've heard, that knight is quite the dangerous foe, who has been causing trouble for many years. It seems what happened at the mausoleum was just the latest incident of his. Your sister might have been his latest victim, but I swear it'll be his last. On my honor as the prince of the Holy Kingdom of Faerghus, I swear I will help you get vengeance. You Dmitri, has anyone ever told you how intense you can be sometimes? He blinked. Excuse me. Thanks for the offer, but I'm not going to go out and seek revenge, I just wanna make sure my sister is okay. Which, side note, don't call her a victim, okay? I understand my words may not have been the best, but do you truly not want to seek revenge? I mean, sure, if I get the chance to take a shot at the guy, I'll go for it. But I'm not going to go off on a revenge quest, I wanna make sure Bai is fully healed up first. If she wants revenge, then sure, we'll ask for your help, but until then I'm not going for it. Shay wasn't completely sure, but it kinda seemed like Dmitri was confused by what she was saying. I see, you're prioritizing care. I can understand that. Still, we must not be hesitant, lest more victims arise. I said not to call Bai a victim. She's not a damsel in distress, Dmitri. My apologies, I meant no offense. Yeah, sure, Shay said, frowning, if that's all, then I'm going. Without waiting for another word, Shay turned around and left, vaguely hearing Dmitri call out to her for a moment. She wasn't sticking around to hear anything else though. Shay sighed, scratching at the back of her head. She didn't like how complicated things were getting, and she probably should have said something to Dida there. Said hi, at least. Ugh, today sucks, she grumbled, before pausing as she heard, muttering. See, come on Bernie, the professor bought you a new bow and everything, why you need to do this, Bernadetta muttered to herself, her hands tight on her brand new longbow. She stared at the entrance to the training hall, trying to muster up the courage to go in there. And no, I shouldn't, there's going to be people in there and they're going to see me and they'll know I'm terrible, but the professor, well, technically she didn't get up and buy it, right? She had one of those scary mercenaries help, and they'll probably kill me if I don't practice with it, oh no. Hey Bernie, Shay greeted, before blinking as the shorter girl outright screamed in fright before brandishing the bow at her. Though, not like someone would brandish a bow, she was holding it like it was a lance, for some reason. Stay back, wait, it's, Stay back. Okay, I guess you're still terrified of me. Shay frowned. Hey, Bernie, why are you so terrified of me? As if you don't know. But I don't know. Don't lie. I'm not lying. I genuinely don't know why you're so afraid of me. Or, mad at me? Is this what it looks like when you're mad at someone? Bernadetta gave her a very suspicious look, but stopped pointing her bow at Shay in favor of holding it to her chest. Why, you really don't remember? But you glared right at me. What? When did I glare at you? When you were leaving my house. When did Shay go to her house? Could you give me some more context? Because I still don't know what you're talking about. Why, you should. It was, 5 years ago, I think, and your father was working for my father and my father didn't pay your father and you glared at me when you left. Shay frowned, then closed her eyes, trying to think. 5 years ago, and Bernie's dad didn't pay her dad. Oh. You're Count Varley's daughter. Don't be mad. Bernadetta yelped, before Shay's words actually registered. Wait, huh? Hold on, you didn't know that I'm Gregoire von Varley's daughter? No? How would I? My name is Bernadetta von Varley. Yeah, but you could have been a niece or something. Wow, I didn't guess that at all. I thought for sure his daughter would be some haughty, callous jerk like he is. But you're so, she gestured to Bernadetta. I know I'm pathetic, you don't need to say it. What? No, I mean you're tiny and skittish, not all oh-ho-ho and vain. How the heck did you come from a huge jackass like that? Well, my father tied me to a chair so I would be more quiet and ladylike. Oh. Oh, I see. Shay nodded. I'm going to kill your dad. What? Wait, why you can't? Well he's, okay, he doesn't have any redeeming qualities, but you still shouldn't. I'm not actually hearing a reason why I shouldn't. He's the Minister of Religious Affairs. The whole empire would go after you. Okay, I'll just ask Edelgard if I can first. And no. That's, wait, would that work? Probably. Though, okay, give me a while to figure it out first. I should probably ask Byleth for a plan first. Please don't tell Professor Byleth about this. Okay, fine, we'll save that for later. For now, what were we talking about? Oh, right, yeah, I'm not mad at you. I kind of forgot about that until you brought it up. But now you remember and you want to kill me. No? Look, Bernie, I promise I'm not going to kill you. Byleth likes you, you're my classmate, and you seem like a nice girl, so no, I'm not going to kill you. I have zero reason to. Heck, I have more reason to keep you alive because Byleth likes you. She does. Yeah, she does. And I'm sure I'll like you too once I get to know you. So, hey, what are you up to right now? Bernadetta glanced at the bow in her hands. I was going to head to the training hall to try out my new bow, that scary mercenary bought it for me because of the professor. Oh, the big, bald, bearded guy. And no. Really? Then, the kind of wiry guy with the goatee. And no. The stern lady in healer clothes. Bernie shook her head. Millimeter. The blonde one. Why yes. Her. She's terrifying. Shay considered what she knew of Candace, then nodded. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hey, why don't I come with you? We might as well hang out some more, right? You I don't know, Eep. Bernadetta squeaked as Shay took her by the shoulder and steered her towards the training hall. Wait, I changed my mind. I am fine. I'm completely fine. I can practice better at night anyway. Bernie, it's fine. We'll just get you set up and, oh hey, I didn't know Ash and Felix were in here. Bernadetta didn't either and she made a mildly terrified noise at the sight of the two boys. Not that they were doing anything especially terrifying, considering Ash was just practicing striking at a dummy with a lance, and not really doing that well at it, while Felix was practicing sword forms. Though the black-haired boy immediately paused once he noticed Shay. Hey, Shay, get over here. I need a sparring partner. Oh, sure, just give me a bit. Guiding Bernadetta over to where targets were set up, Shay made sure she was facing them. There we go, just call me over if you need any help. Oh okay, with that, Shay walked over to where Felix was, before catching a sword he tossed. Not wasting any time We're going up against someone with a crest weapon, and even if he was disowned, Sylvain's brother was trained from birth to be a military leader. Of course, that just means he's that much more worthy of an opponent. Felix explained. Speaking of, your sister has a relic weapon now, right? Yeah. Good, tell her to heal quickly, I want to be able to face off against someone who can wield a legendary weapon like that, Felix said, as he got into his stance. Felix, I know you're not one for tact, but my sister almost died, maybe wait till she's recovered to say something like that. She lived, didn't she? Shay stared at Felix, dead silent. What? Say something, he demanded. He tried not to show it, but something in her stare was discomforting. Shay just held her sword out and dropped it on the floor, before turning on her heel and leaving with her hands balled into fists. Hey. We were going to spar, he complained, but Shay didn't reply or look back. The hell is her problem? What is wrong with him? Shay growled under her breath, though the deep scowl on her face faded quickly when she nearly ran into someone. Sorry, oh, hey Hey yourself, Emily greeted, raising an eyebrow, you look fit to kill someone. Heh. No, I'm not that pissed off, though I did agree to kill Bernie's dad for her. Oh, the mousy girl. I didn't think she had it in her, Emily muttered, sounding impressed. Which Shay wasn't about to touch. So what are you up to? Going to train. Emily gave Shay a look like she was being an idiot and crossed her arms over her chest. Why else would I be going to the training grounds? I dunno, maybe a secret rendezvous. She scoffed. The training grounds are way too open for any meetings. You should know that. Look, never mind. Unless you're planning to go train with me, get going with whatever you were doing. Alright. And, no, I don't think I'm going in there right now. Though I'm kind of curious what brought this on. I haven't seen you around the training grounds before. Emily sighed, looking irritated. It's because of that night. Him and your sister. Oh. Yeah, okay, I can understand that. Good, then I don't need to explain myself. Just know this, Shay. I'll use this place to get as strong as I need to. Stronger than you, stronger than your sister, and strong enough to beat anyone I ever have to face. You got that? Heh. Yeah, I do. But don't think it'll be easy. I'm getting better every day too. So you've got a long way to go if you want to get to my level, she encouraged with a big grin, earning an amused huff from her friend. Sure, talk big, but it won't be long before I'm the one on top. Now, seriously, if you're not sticking around, get out of here. I have shit to do. Heh, sure am. See you around. Shay said, waving to her friend as she headed off. Then, after walking for a few seconds, Shay paused again as a thought occurred. Oh, shit, I just left Bernie there without a word. She'll probably be fine. M's one of her classmates, she'll be nice. Oh damn it all, Shay muttered, her bad mood returning rapidly when she noticed who happened to be standing outside of the infirmary. Don't understand why you won't even try to, Shay. Ingrid perked up upon noticing her classmate, which was kind of nice to see. What wasn't nice to see was who she was with, and Sylvain seemed to agree based on how he winced once he noticed Shay. Oh, this is going to suck. Shay could agree to that, though she really didn't want to considering who was saying it. Hi Ingrid. Hey Sylvain. Are you two here to see my sister? I was planning on it, but Sylvain doesn't want to, for some reason, Ingrid complained, frowning at her friend. It's just, well, Shay knows why it's a bad idea. Shay felt her frown return as Sylvain passed the buck to her, something he noticed and grimaced to see. Yeah, I can think of a reason. Ingrid glanced between Sylvain and Shay with a concerned frown of her own. Okay, what is going on between you two? Shay, I know Sylvain can be bad, but even he wouldn't take advantage of the professor while she's injured. He's not that terrible. I know he's not that bad. It's a different concern. And what is that concern? Come on, you two have been avoiding each other for weeks now. I'm starting to think something really bad happened here and it's worrying me. Shay glanced at Sylvain. Do you want me to say anything? He sighed. Sure, you might as well. It's not like I deserve any better. Sylvain. Ingrid looked genuinely worried by this point and the sight made Shay's stomach turn. What happened? Sylvain talked to me, Shay answered. He wasn't flirting, he just wanted to check in with me after I had an argument with Bai. It was a nice gesture. Kinda thoughtful, honestly. He looked surprised to hear that, but Shay ignored his reaction so she could keep going. He talked about how much he hates his crest and how it ruined his life, and then he mentioned how he's jealous of my sister because she didn't have to deal with the problems of being a noble. He mentioned her owing a debt and making her pay for that crest. I took it as him threatening my sister, and I told him if he ever threatened her again, I would kill him. Shay shrugged, trying to ignore the stunned look on Ingrid's face. I guess he's thinking I would take it badly if he visited my injured sister after saying that. Would you? Sylvain asked. Shay stared at him. Yeah. I would. Sylvain wouldn't do that, Ingrid tried to say, though she looked like she was still trying to get her thoughts in order. I know he's a lot to deal with, but he wouldn't hurt anyone. I know you believe that, but you grew up with him, Ingrid, Shay replied. You're close, so sure, I can believe that you're sure he wouldn't hurt my sister, but I've only known him for a few months, and all I know is that he says he doesn't like seeing girls cry, but makes them cry anyway. So, sure, I can believe he'd swear up and down that he'd never hurt a hair on my sister's head. But I'm sure as hell not leaving him alone in the same room as her. That's fair, Sylvain said. What? Sylvain. Ingrid looked at him. She still looked lost, like she'd just had part of her world turned upside down. She's right, Ingrid. I can swear all I want that I didn't mean it, but she has no reason to trust me and plenty of reason to think I'm lying. He glanced at the infirmary door, then let out a sigh. I'm sorry. No matter what I feel, I shouldn't have said that. And I know I shouldn't take my problems out on other people. I'm just kind of pathetic like that. Sylvain. Shay let out a sigh of her own. I don't think I'm gonna stick around after this month. Both of her classmates paused at that, before staring at her in confusion. At the academy? Sylvain asked. No, I'm still sticking around here until the year is up. It's just, I don't think I'm doing good in this class. I'm just not enjoying it, you know? So, I don't know for sure if this is it, or what I might decide later, but I thought I should let you two know since you're here and all. Wait, Shay, you don't have to leave. Ingrid insisted, please, I know things might be rough right now, but... All right. She paused, then looked up at Sylvain with wide eyes. Sylvain. Hey, if it's what she wants, it's what she wants. I'm just sorry for my part in it driving you off, Shay. I swear, I didn't want this. Shay huffed, grinning a little. Yeah, I know, you'd rather keep all the pretty girls by your side. He looked surprised at her teasing, before he tried to grin back. Yeah, you know me, I don't like making girls cry, but it seems to be all I'm good at. I'm not crying, jerk. I'm mad. There's a difference. Oh, believe me, I know that. He sighed again, deeper and longer than before. I know it doesn't mean much, but I swear to you, I will never do anything to hurt your sister. I might not have much honor, but on what little I do have left, I promise you that. Well, they do say a knight of Faerghus will always keep their oath. Shay shrugged. Do you want to come in? Hang out with me and Byleth for a bit? Heh. Maybe some other time. Before we head out for the mission, at least. Sure. I'm sure she'd like to say hi. She glanced at Ingrid. The offer's open to you too, if you want. Huh? Oh, actually, I think I'm going to decline for now too. I think, Ingrid looked up at Sylvain again. I think Sylvain and I should talk for a bit. A pained look crossed Sylvain's face for a moment, before he nodded to her request. Okay. See you two around, all right? I wouldn't mind talking some more, if you're up for it. Sure. Thank you, Shay. Ingrid smiled, though it was a troubled one. Yeah. I'll see you around, Shay. Sylvain looked conflicted, then just nodded to her. Thanks for giving me another chance. Yeah. Just don't ruin it or I'll tear your balls off. Eesh. You think we could just stick to the death threats next time? If you insist. Shay waved off her classmates, her two friends, then turned to the infirmary door. I really hope this thing's thick enough that nobody heard anything. She shook her head, then slapped her cheeks. All right, Kman. You're visiting by, be happy. Woo, all right, no more angst, time for happy. And with that, she pushed the door open and headed inside. Hey bye, how's it? Oh, hey Shay, Byleth greeted from her usual bed, sitting up again with her legs crossed and 5 playing cards in her hands. Because apparently she had a card deck with her, and was playing poker with Edelgard. The Imperial Crown Princess looked faintly annoyed at her hand, before she glanced over at Shay. "Oh, hello. I didn't know you were visiting." "Well, I didn't know you were going to be playing poker in here, so that makes two of us," Shay replied, before pulling up a chair to Byleth's bedside, on the same side as Edelgard so she could peek at her hand. "Oh wow, that's bad. I am aware, yes, though I am also fairly certain you shouldn't be giving that away to my opponent," she chided, looking irritated. "Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I already knew. You do have a bad poker face, Edelgard." Letting out a sigh, Edelgard tossed her cards onto the bed. "Fine, I fold. PFT, it's a real good thing you're not playing for money. I might not cheat like the others do in cards, but you'll have a hard time reading her if you haven't known her for a long time. You're getting better at least. It doesn't seem like you just learned how to play. Do you want to play again?" "No need to comfort me, and no, I really should be going. I would hate to intrude upon your time with your sister," Edelgard said as she glanced at Shay. "Okay, see you tomorrow." "Of course, Professor. I'll see you then." With a bow, Edelgard left, and if Shay hadn't been watching her leave, she would have missed Hubert slinking out of a corner to follow behind. "You know, sometimes I feel like that guy might be Edelgard's ghost friend," Shay muttered, before turning to face Byleth. "So, how are you feeling?" "Better. Manuela says I'm healing quickly. Both Hanneman and Lynn say it's probably because of my crest." "Huh, that's handy. Though, you know, if you had Arvel I'm sure you would have been up and ready by now." "Yeah, I guess crests aren't that big of a deal," Byleth responded back, amused. "I mean, you can just summon a sword out of nowhere. I have to find one that just so happens to work with my crest." "Heh, you hear that, Arvel? She's admitting you're better than her powers." "Of course, that's only natural," the voice in her head said, sounding smug. "Her powers may be frightening, but as my partner, you'd obviously end up with something better." Tilting her head, Byleth frowned. "Suthies is mad at what I said? And that turning the hands of time is infinitely better than a sword? And that got Arvel mad? Arvel says that at least he can make sure to heal his partner right away. Suthies says her powers can help save other people. Why are we arguing for the ghosts in our head?" Byleth shrugged. "Seems rude to ignore them." "Yeah, but they're being stupid." And that got an angry squawk from Arvel and Suthies, though Shay couldn't hear the latter. "True. When are you going on your mission?" "It's fairly north in the kingdom, yeah." Byleth asked, ignoring how her words further incensed the spirits. "Not sure. Probably a week before the end of the month, at least. Either way, I'm sure your students are glad to not have to go to the kingdom again. Don't think any of them want to deal with that cold again." "I definitely don't," Byleth responded, making Shay laugh. "You're the one that has magic to keep her warm though." "Still. Hope I'm not interrupting," Gerald spoke up as he leaned in from the doorway. "Oh, hey Dad, something up?" "No, just, I wanted to show you two something. I already got permission from Manuela for you to come with me." As he spoke, they noticed he had some flowers in hand. Sure." Glancing between themselves, Byleth and Shay felt a bit worried. Still, Shay helped her sister get out of bed and get dressed as Gerald waited outside. "Where are we going?" "Something I should have shown you before," Gerald said, leading the sisters downstairs. It felt weird. They were used to their dad being quiet sometimes, but he was never solemn like this. Silently following him, the trio further made their way down, until they arrived at a graveyard. Confused, Byleth looked around, before her eyes stopped on one. "Citri." "Oh. Huh? What did you?" Shay paused as she noticed the grave too. She glanced at her sister, who was just quiet. Which wasn't unusual for Byleth, but she was staring right at the grave too, which made her silence kind of uncomfortable. Shay looked back at her dad, who was just watching too, and tried to smile. This feels kind of private, so I'm just gonna." Then Byleth took her hand in hers. Shay paused, then looked at her sister, who seemed, well, it was hard to tell. Byleth always did have a stoic face. So Shay just gave her sister's hand a reassuring squeeze, and felt a smile come to her face when she saw Byleth relax slightly, some of her tension fading at her presence. Byleth let go of her hand after a moment, then moved up to the grave and crouched down, just examining it for the moment. "What should I do?" "Well, I know some people, talk at graves," Shay offered, standing behind her sister. She still felt kind of awkward, being her, since Citrai wasn't her mom, but she put a hand on Byleth's shoulder and moved next to her. Still standing, but at her side now. "It helps, I think." "Hello Mama," Byleth murmured in a small voice. She swallowed, her throat strangely tight. "It's nice to meet you. I wish I could have known you while you were alive." She reached up, taking her sister's hand again, and tugged, encouraging Shay to crouch beside her before she continued. "This is Shay. She's my sister. You wouldn't have met her because she had a different mom, but she's family. I think you would have liked her. She's the best sister I could have ever asked for." "JG's, it's like you're trying to make me cry," Shay mumbled, her throat tight too, before she smiled at the grave. Hey there, hey, sorry, I don't know if I should call you Citrai or Mrs. Eisner or, I guess I wouldn't mind calling you Mom too. You'd, be the third one I've had. My second mom's name was Periander, and I bet you two would have liked each other. She was really smart and thoughtful, and I think you'd be similar, you know? Though, I guess that's guessing a lot about you, but I'm sure you would have been great. I'm kind of sad I didn't get to meet you either." Gerald smiled, faintly, as he watched his daughters talk to his wife's grave. It felt like it should be strange, living as long as he had and yet still feeling her loss so very strongly, but he didn't mind it too much. It meant he was still human, despite everything. He kept that thought in mind as he stepped next to his daughters. The two glanced up at him, looking nothing alike and nothing at all like him. But that didn't matter, because they were his kids. And he smiled as he handed Byleth the flowers. "Here. I think your mom would like these." They were her favorites. Byleth swallowed again, and Gerald felt a faint pang of surprise and sadness to see a tear roll down her cheek for the first time he could remember seeing. Then she smiled, and that small hurt faded completely. "Thank you, Papa," she murmured, before glancing at Shay, who nodded to her with an encouraging grin. Byleth couldn't help but return with the biggest smile either of her family members had seen before she faced the grave again and laid the flowers down in front of it. "I hope you like them. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you for giving me life." They stayed by the grave for a time after that. Byleth leaned on Shay, emotionally drained but still smiling faintly as her sister wrapped an arm around her, giving her a hug. For a moment, everything else seemed to fade, and it was just the Eisner family, all together in one place. Shay was never going to let anyone hurt her sister. Never again. Chapter 52, The Secrets of the Monastery. Shay frowned to herself as she watched the stars overhead. She still felt listless and she wasn't sure why. Byleth was fine, right? She was alive, but things hadn't gone back to normal yet. Byleth was still in bed most of the time, staying in the infirmary so Manuela or Gertrude could keep an eye on her, the latter taking over while the former had classes to teach, and that meant the world still felt out of balance to the purple-haired merc. It was a weird feeling. And one she didn't really like. "I suppose your trepidation is only natural," Arvel commented, floating alongside her. "Your destined rival was felled by a truly monstrous foe. One would most certainly be off-put, even if she had completely recovered by now." "Yeah. I get what you mean," Shay responded, sighing as she sat up, stretching her arms as she did. As nice as it was to look at the stars from a rooftop, it definitely wasn't easy on her back. "Now, I think we should be, What is that?" Arvel suddenly asked, glancing down. Following their gaze, Shay looked down as well, spotting not only the house leaders, but a student from each house with them. "Well, that is certainly an odd group." Huh. Well, Shay was certainly interested. So it came to no surprise she would hop down. "Let's just hope we're not marching to certain doom," Claude said as Shay landed behind him. "What's that about doom?" Shay asked, getting most of the group to yelp in surprise at her sudden appearance. "Which well, was completely unintentional, but she was definitely going to savor the feeling. Shay? What are you doing here? Edelgard asked, narrowing her eyes at her like she didn't just squeak in fright. I was hanging out on the rooftop until I saw you guys down here. And why were you on the rooftop? Claude asked as he quirked an eyebrow. Thinking about stuff. Why are you guys hanging out together this late? Ah, Claude saw someone suspicious, so we were hoping to follow them. Which we should get to doing before they get away, Dimitri answered. Oh, this is already sounding like a pain, Lindhart muttered. But before we go, I did have a suggestion to make that Edelgard cruelly struck down, Claude interrupted, turning Edelgard's annoyed glare towards him, but I figure I might as well ask you, Shay, do you think we should ask Tej to join us? Not at all. Shay immediately responded, Edelgard has the right idea, Bai is still recovering. Yeah, I don't think it would be a good idea for Professor Byleth to come along, Ash spoke up. Heh, it seems you've been outvoted, Claude. Now come on, we might as well get this over with, Hilda said with a grin while Claude let out a dramatic sigh. All right, I see a losing battle when I see one, Claude admitted before he began to lead the way through a hole in the wall. Letting out an amused huff, Shay followed along with the group, stepping close to Edelgard. Hey, thanks for making sure Bai didn't get dragged along. It's only natural I wouldn't want to put her in a dangerous situation when she's injured, Edelgard responded, though I suspect she likely would have come along if one of us did ask her. Yeah, Bai can be like that. She really likes you guys, so she focuses more on protecting all of you instead of herself. Yes, that has been clear since the first mission. I never expected to meet a self-sacrificing mercenary like her. Yeah, Bai can be dumb sometimes. Hence why I tend to keep an eye out for her. May I ask why exactly you didn't join the Black Eagles in that case? Well, I do want her to get out a bit more. Like, obviously she's still going to need my help, but I can't always be the talker, you know. Shay responded, I mean, she's going to eventually take over the mercenary group, so that means she'll be the one accepting missions. I can see the logic there, Edelgard said, before she began to study Shay. What if I were to hire Geralt's mercenaries once you all leave the academy? Whoa, really? Shay asked, before she blinked. Huh, that's right, you guys made that offer back at the start of the year, heh, well if you pay well, I definitely wouldn't say no. In that case, care to regale me with more tales of your journeys? The more I know, the better I'll be able to pay. Oh sure. In that case, I already told you about our daring adventure against the Red Tyrant, oh, I know. Allow me to regale you, Your Highness, with the tale of the cruel machinations of the Scorpion Gang. Edelgard did her best to suppress a giggle as Shay launched into a clearly exaggerated tale of her and Byleth dealing with a smuggling ring. Well, it wasn't exactly what Edelgard was asking about, but might as well listen to hear if she heard anything important. And that's when I came crashing through the window, blades at the ready as Byleth and I took on the Scorpion boss. Shay said to her crowd of classmates, all of whom had become invested in the story as they walked. You didn't go get backup? Dimitri asked, a bit surprised. Of course not, Bai and I are invincible together. Shay responded with a grin, why would we ask for backup? I don't know, seems like you'll definitely need backup, a new voice piped in, getting the students' attention as they saw a tall, muscular man approach them. He smirked while cracking his knuckles. Around here you'll definitely need more than this small group if you want to survive. Identify yourself. Dimitri demanded, even as he and the house leaders got into defensive positions. Hey now, don't you know it's only polite to introduce yourself first? Especially if you're going to be intruding on someone's home. Eeg, you live down here? Hilda asked, frowning at him. That we do. And I refuse to allow any invader trample upon our home. Another voice said, getting their attention as a posh-looking blonde walked up. Especially if they mean to eliminate the good people of Abyss. Abyss? Claude asked, curious about that tidbit. For the record, I don't plan on eliminating anything, so feel free to ignore me, Lindhart said. Ha! You cannot fool me. The eyes of Constance von Novelli can see through your lies. Novelli. Edelgard muttered, surprised at that name. So, you guys mind calming down and telling us what's up? Shay asked, raising a hand to catch everyone's attention. That's what I want to know, spoke yet another voice. This time two people arrived, a pretty boy with lavender hair and a bored-looking girl with dark skin and red hair. I mean, here we were, minding our own business, only for a bunch of students with weapons to come visit us. I'm sure my friends and I would love to hear what you're doing. At that, Shay heard a rock get kicked behind her, catching her attention as she turned around to see several goons behind them. Guys, any way we can try escaping? Ash asked, pulling out his bow. I don't think we have the option, Dimitri responded as the other students brought out their weapons. Glad to hear. Shay shouted, pulling out her own sword, I've been waiting for a fight. Now you're speaking my language, the big guy yelled back, raising his hands to show a pair of wicked-looking gauntlets affixed to them. You better get ready, because you're about to face the indomitable king of grappling. Hilda blinked at that statement, a thoughtful look crossing her face even as she readied her axe and the rest of the students prepared for a fight. Well, this is going to be a mess, the pretty boy complained, before looking at his compatriots. Try not to kill anyone, all right? We're looking for information here, not a bloodbath. Don't worry, Yuri, I'm just gonna put these kids to bed, the king of grappling declared, before taking the lead as he and all the other goons rushed right in. Shay felt a big grin come to her face as she lunged for the king, summoning her special sword to her hand and diving right into the fray. Though since that Yuri guy told his guys not to try to kill anyone, she decided to be nice and not just start cutting off heads. Shallow cuts and some kicks to knock people out were the way to go this time around. Though she did re-evaluate her plan to hold back once she actually got close to his kingliness and the guy nearly knocked her flat with a punch that just barely missed her head. Whoa. Looks like that title of yours isn't just for show, Your Majesty. Of course it isn't, I'm not the majestic king of grappling for nothing. The man boasted with a toothy grin before following up his attack with one to her gut. Dodging by transforming into a trail of purple light, Shay backed away from him before coming back to kick a goon who was about to attack Dimitri from behind. In that case, let me introduce myself. I'm the invincible Violet Demon. Feel free to give up if you're afraid. Why would the undefeated king of grappling give up against some no-name punk? Shay's eyes narrowed in response, before she suddenly appeared in front of him, kicking him in the face. How's that for no-name punk? Whoa. Shay yelped as a firm hand tightened around her leg, before she went flying through the air from a strong toss. Starting to think your sister was right with no taunting your opponent if they're still a threat, Arvel oh so helpfully chimed in as Shay twisted in the air to land. Huffing, she rushed back into the fight, only to dodge a slash from the pretty boy, Yuri. Violet Demon, I've heard of you. You're one of those mercenary sisters who joined the academy, aren't you? What about it? Shay asked, grinning as they clashed blades. If you're planning on hiring me, you choose the wrong way to go about it. Come now, surely you have a price, he commented, before jerking back as an arrow went flying towards his face. Courtesy of Ash, watch it. A face like mine shouldn't get scratched up. Before she could thank her friend for the assist, Shay had to dodge a blast of magic sent at her by Blondie. No, wait, her name's Constance, she mentioned that. Right, keep track. Tucking and rolling, Shay got ready to fight again, before pausing when she realized the bored-looking redhead was just leaning against a wall. You, not going to join? Nah, they got it handled. Happy, you could at least pretend to help. Yuri shouted, letting Shay know the last member of their group's name. Fine, Happy agreed with a sigh, before blinking. Oh. Before Shay could ask what she meant, the wall next to them burst open and a crawler, as its name would imply, crawled through the hole in the wall with several more behind it. Shit. Getting up, Shay did the first thing that came to mind. That being, grabbing Happy to get her away from the sudden demonic beast. Why are you holding me? I'm getting you away from that thing. Shay shouted. Oh. Well, it seems she doesn't realize I summoned those things. Guess she's a well-meaning idiot, Happy thought to herself. Hey. She's trying to kidnap Happy. though it seemed not everyone picked up on that, as made evident by Constance's yell. I knew these scoundrels were up to no good. I'm not kidnapping anyone. Shay shouted while the lead crawler began to chase her, up until Edelgard slammed her axe into its side. How about a ceasefire until we take these things out? Edelgard asked while she backed away from the lead crawler, leaving a bloody furrow in the writhing monster's side. Well, that sounds like a lovely idea, Yuri responded as he eyed the crawlers. If you survive this, I'll even be willing to let you explain yourselves without sicking Balthus on you. I'm definitely up for that if it means not dealing with him, Claude said as he fired a curved shot at a crawler. Hey, come on, I'm not that bad. You're pretty bad, B, Happy muttered after Shay put her down, before a swarm of dark energy flew from her raised hands and began biting down on a crawler as Dimitri speared the beast. If it gets things over with, Lindhart muttered, sending a cutting gale that actually sped up Ash's arrows as they were launched, sending them plunging deep into the monster he targeted. Well, at least we aren't fighting each other, Ash said, trying to look on the bright side. Ugh, I am so glad I brought a hand axe. This is already such a pain and I'm not about to get monster guts on me, Hilda complained, before throwing the axe as hard as she could at the nearest crawler, getting the beast to wail as the blade slammed hard enough into its head to send it falling over. Oh, yay, I did it. Congrats, just a couple more to go, Claude snarked. In that case, best get to work, Shay shouted as she charged into the fray, grinning in delight as monster blood stained the ground. All right. Now that was a workout, Balthus declared with a big grin, his fists raised in triumph as he stood atop a fallen crawler, his foot planted firmly on the beast's head. Ha ha. But these things were no match for the almighty king of grappling. Huh. Wasn't that the one you took out? Shay asked Hilda, pointing to the axe embedded deep in the big worm's neck. Tall, buff, and burly can take credit if he really wants to, Hilda decided, waving a hand dismissively. It's better that way, makes sure people don't start getting weird ideas of putting expectations on a cute, helpless girl like me. I don't know about helpless. Oh, so you agree that I'm cute? Well, yeah, duh, you're adorable, Shay replied without hesitation, before pausing. Oh hey, I think everybody else is meeting up over there with the new people. Come, let's go. Fine, Hilda huffed as Balthus got off the crawler, a grin coming to the big guy's face as he looked over the pair of young ladies. Heh, never thought I'd see little Hilda with a girlfriend. Hilda paused, raising an eyebrow at him. Huh? But I'm not even dating Marianne yet. Wait, how do you know my name? Ah, come on, you don't remember me? It's me, Balthus. Balti? Hilda asked, confusion turning to shock once she recognized him. Yup, and don't worry, I won't tell Holst about you dating someone. Balti, I already told you, I'm not dating anyone, yet. And I'm definitely not dating Shay. Ouch. Shay said, having caught the emphasis in her voice. Oh, you know what I mean. Do you really think the two of us would work out together? Yeah, that's fair. See? And besides, it's a bit hard to try and date Marianne since she's in a different class now. You could always join the Black Eagles, Edelgard offered, deciding to stop pretending she wasn't listening to their conversation, which earned a huff from Claude. Stop trying to poach my classmates. No offense, Edelgard, but as nice as it would be to be in Marianne's class again, I feel like you'd expect too much of me, Hilda said. I mean, I might be willing to join the Blue Lions cause Dimitri is more of a pushover, but I don't think you'd let me get away with anything. I'm standing right here, Dimitri said with a frown on his face. I can't believe what I'm hearing. You'd actually abandon me, Hilda? Claude asked, an overly dramatic tone in his voice. I mean, probably, yeah. Besides, Lawrence would probably be a better fit for your retainer. Okay, now you're just being cruel to me, Claude complained. You really want me to take the most pompous noble in Fodlan as my retainer? I believe Ferdinand would argue that point, Edelgard noted. Seriously, Edelgard? Are we really going to compete over who has the most pompous noble in their class? If we're having a competition like that, I'd like to put Coco in the running, Happy offered, earning an affronted look from Constance. Pompous? I am not pompous. though I will agree that I am far more noble than anyone else who may lay claim to such a title. Didn't your house lose its standing? Linhard asked with his usual amount of tact. Temporarily. For you see, I, Constance von Novelli, shall ensure my house rises from the ashes once more and takes its rightful place as one of the premier noble houses of Adrestia. Oh ho 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 ho. Yeah, all right, she's a strong competitor for the title, Claude agreed, nodding to Happy. Well, as entertaining as this is, I do believe it would be best to discuss why exactly your group is down here, Yuri brought up, eyeing the students. Well, we came down here cause Claude apparently saw someone suspicious, Ash explained. It's not every day a bandit decides to sneak into Garreg Mach, after all, Edelgard continued. Or for students to find a group of people living under it, Dimitri stated. I see. Well, it's for the best to avoid talking about this place on the surface. Most that are in the know aren't exactly fond of us down here. Abyss is a place of refuge for anyone who needs it, regardless of what they might have done in the past, Yuri explained, though that also leads to trouble, hence why we assumed you were attacking us. Does this happen that often? Dimitri asked. In the past few months, yes. We've been dealing with some mercenary attacks, and while we don't know who they're working for, we're not exactly going to let them push us around. Oh, do you need help? Shay asked. You would offer your help so easily. Constance inquired in return. I mean, yeah? I was looking to work out some stress anyways, so this helps. In that case, I want to help out too. Ash piped in. If people need help, then I won't ignore them. You guys could at least try to get something out of this, Claude muttered. Come on now, Claude, where's the harm in helping them out? Dimitri asked. Excellent. In that case, I suppose we might as well show you around the place before we get to work, Yuri said with a smirk. I'm sure Aelfric will also appreciate the help, Balthus pointed out. Aelfric? Yeah, he's a bigwig up in the church. He's also the guy in charge around here. I'm sure you'll think he's great when you meet him. Whoa, there really is a town down here. Shay exclaimed, staring with wide, interested eyes at the underground town called Abyss. What, did you think we were lying? Yuri inquired with an amused grin, do I look like the type to lie? Yep. My, you are a blunt one. Well, either way, welcome to Abyss, he declared, turning to the group and throwing his arms wide with a smirk. There aren't many rules down here, but I'm sure I don't need to tell the fine students of Garreg Mach that they aren't allowed to rob, assault, or kill any of the residents of our fine city down here. We would never do anything of the sort, Dimitri assured, frowning at the very idea, which earned a roll of the eyes from Happy. You're a real good guy, huh, Blondie? Oh, well, thank you, I do try to be. A real genius too, she muttered, prompting a grin from Yuri. Leaving aside my surly friend's sarcasm for now, I do believe we should get around to actually introducing ourselves now. Or at least all of you should introduce yourselves, since I'm sure you overheard us mentioning each other's names already. Oh, right, of course, Dimitri agreed, before placing a hand on his chest. I am Dimitri Alexander Bladdid, the Crown Prince of Faerghus and a student at the Officers' Academy. And these two are my fellow classmates in the Blue Lion's house, Ash Hubert and Shay Eisner. It's nice to meet you, Ash greeted, his eyes lingering a little on Yuri as he tried to figure out where he'd seen the older teen before. I wanted to introduce myself, Shay complained with a pout. You know you still could, Shady, Happy pointed out. Oh, true. Alright then, I'm Shay Eisner, the Violet Demon, a legendary mercenary and daughter of Geralt the Bladebreaker. Also the sister of Byleth Eisner, the Ashen Dragon, who is also cool. Oh, a legendary merc, huh? Funny, I don't think I've heard of you, Balthus commented with a grin as Shay bristled. I have, Yuri noted, smirking, which earned a grin from Shay. Alright, you're my new favorite. Heh, keep that up, Shay, and people might start thinking you're fickle, Claude commented, amused, before raising a hand in greeting. Hey there, Claude von Regan, and my friend who your friend already knows is Hilda Goneril. Hi Balti. And Balti's friends. Hilda greeted, playing up her cheerful, cute aspects to make a good first impression. Well, A good second impression. It's nice to meet all of you. I hope you'll be nice to me. Laying it on a little thick there, Hilda. Balthus commented, which put a damper on her attempt. Ah, come on, Balti, what are you saying? Hilda asked with a pout. To finish introductions, I am Edelgard von Hresvelg, house leader of the Black Eagles, Edelgard introduced, before glancing at Lindhart, who seemed to almost be dozing off until she cleared her throat. Oh, I thought you'd introduce me so I wouldn't have to. He lazily raised his hand. Lindhart. Well, feel free to wander about, though try not to get lost. Abyss has yet to be fully explored by anyone, so who knows what's down here. Yuri said, getting Shay to grin at the thought of finding. You're not wandering about, Arvel instantly interjected, knowing you'd wind up getting lost in here and appearing in Srang when you exited. Now Shay was curious if this place did lead to Srang. Maybe it even had secret passageways to the three nations' capitals. Well, now she had to explore. Excuse me, my friend. Or she would have if Yuri didn't walk up to her. I wanted to ask you for help. Oh? With what? Well, we've been having a bit of a problem with some mercenaries down here for a bit. So I was hoping you might be willing to help out with a plan we have. Heh, well, I'm not going to say no, but we're going to need to talk about payment first. I'm by myself, so you don't have to pay full price, but still, I'm not cheap. Yuri couldn't help but smirk. Well, she's going to be fun. Chapter 53, Cardinal Virtue. Classes still hadn't started back up for Byleth. She could understand why, since she'd been injured, but it was starting to bother her that she wasn't teaching even when she felt up for it. Apparently getting her chest cut open made people worry about recovery time and stuff like that, which was definitely a new experience for her. She'd never been injured that badly before, and any injuries she did take tended to heal more quickly than whatever the Death Knight had done to her. So that meant the professor of the Black Eagles spent most of her recent days just hanging around with her students or her family, when she wasn't resting. And when it was the middle of class time and nobody was visiting, well, Byleth wasn't the type to get bored easily. That was more Shay's thing, but after a full week of bed rest and light exercise, even she was starting to get restless. Then her father had work to do again and Shay was busy with classes, so the chances of her keeping occupied decreased significantly. Still, she was at least allowed to walk around the campus now, so she started exploring a bit, and wound up going to her mother's grave. She wasn't sure why, exactly. Her feet just carried her there. The real surprise was seeing someone she hadn't met before standing at the grave and holding a bouquet of flowers, just like the ones Gerald brought before. Sorry it's taking so long. I hope I can see you soon, the man mumbled, before placing the flowers beside the vase that was already there. A touch Byleth decided to add a little while ago. Then he turned and his eyes widened. Oh, I did not expect to see anyone else here. Ah, my apologies, you just look quite familiar. Hello, Byleth greeted in return, before glancing at the grave. Did you know my mother? Oh. So you are her daughter, I see. The man nodded to himself, lost in thought, before he shook his head. Ah, pardon me, my sincere apologies. I am Eilfric Dahlman, a cardinal of the Church of Syros. He placed his hand on his heart and bowed with a slight smile. And you must be Citrian Gerald's daughter then. I must say, I did not expect to run into you here. Byleth shrugged. I was just visiting my mother. It's nice to talk sometimes. Ah, of course, I can understand that. Believe me, I understand that very well, haha, he cleared his throat somewhat awkwardly. My apologies, as I said, I was not expecting to run into anyone, much less Citri's daughter, and I appear to be repeating myself. It's okay, it happens. How did you know my mother? Ah, well, we grew up together, here in the church. Has Gerald told you much about her? Byleth shrugged. Some. I know it's hard for him to talk about her. Did you know Gerald too? Yes, I did. I knew both of them quite well. I was raised as an orphan here and Citri was easily my best friend. As for Captain Gerald, I couldn't help but idolize him. Not that I ever really measured up to him, but you know how it is. I guess. Is Captain Gerald here by any chance? He's on a mission. Not sure when he'll get back. Ah, that is a shame. If I knew he had returned, I would have made time to visit him. How didn't you hear about him? Oh, I've been quite busy. I've been tending to my flock in Abyss. Abyss. She'd heard that name before. Oh, my apologies, that was a slip of the tongue, but... He looked around. I suppose it wouldn't be bad to talk about it. Have you heard about Abyss? No. Heh, well, that's not really a surprise, but to explain, Abyss is a place where those seeking refuge can hide. Many of them are those who cannot seek shelter up above for one reason or another. I myself am the caretaker of the people residing down there. Huh, that sounds nice, Byleth said, getting Aelfric to smile. Thank you. Would you like to visit? I'm sure you'd enjoy talking to those down there. Okay, I don't have anything else to do. Wonderful news. Here, I'll lead the way, Aelfric offered with a smile. Walking ahead, Aelfric gestured for her to follow. If I may ask, were you the one who left the vase of flowers? Yeah. It felt nice to do. I'm sure Citrai was happy to see them. It did surprise me when I saw them though. I'm the only one who tends to her grave, so I didn't expect to see them. I see. Though Shay was the one who chose the vase, Byleth said, before realizing Aelfric wouldn't know who she was. She's my sister. Geralt adopted her a few years ago. That prompted a small smile from him. Today is just full of surprises, I see. Professor, there you are. Blinking, Byleth turned to see Leonie and Petra approaching her. Is something up? Not really, we were just wondering if you saw where Claude or Edelgard went. Leonie asked, glancing at Aelfric for a moment before focusing on her again. Claude mentioned something about seeing someone suspicious appear out of nowhere, so he dragged Edelgard off with him. Linhard and Hilda have also vanished, so we were having hopes you saw them. Are they missing? Byleth asked, some worry for the students coming up through her muted emotions. I think I might know what might have happened, Aelfric spoke up, there's a chance they might have stumbled upon Abyss. Abyss. Leonie repeated, raising an eyebrow. Perhaps it would be better if we hurried along, Byleth, Aelfric said, getting Byleth to nod before Leonie spoke again. Hey, I don't know what this Abyss thing is, but I'm not letting the captain's daughter go off with some random stranger. Yes, as her student, I shall be protecting her while she is injured, Petra firmly stated. Oh dear, Byleth, perhaps we should just have these two accompany us to save time. Yeah, that sounds good. Byleth said, nodding, before a thought occurred, we should bring a blue lion. Aelfric blinked. Pardon? Yeah, to balance things out. We have a church person, she pointed to him, before gesturing to Leonie and Petra. A golden deer and a black eagle. We should get a blue lion so we'll have all four. I have understanding, Petra said, nodding to the professor's logic while Leonie raised an eyebrow. Yeah, I don't get how that's supposed to make sense. Though, I guess I haven't checked if any of the blue lions are missing. In that case, we should check quickly, Byleth said, before leading the group to find a lion. One who they found rather quickly. Oh, hello Didu. Professor, have you seen His Highness? The young man from Duscur asked, worry evident in his voice. I haven't seen him since yesterday. Oh, he's probably with Claude and Edelgard then, Byleth concluded, nodding, we were just about to go see him. Did you want to come along? If it means finding His Highness, of course. Didu nodded. All right, let's go, Byleth declared, pumping her fist, before turning to Aelfric, do you mind leading the way? Of course not, the clergyman said with a smile, come along now, I'm sure my flock will be happy to see you. With that, they began to make their ways into the depths of Garreg Mach. Deep down, until the narrow passageways opened up into enormous caverns. Wow, this is crazy! Leonie exclaimed as she looked around the massive ruins underneath the monastery, there's an entire village down here. How does no one know about this place? You would be surprised by the types of things the church keeps secret, Aelfric replied with a hint of amusement in his voice, in comparison, Abyss is almost mild as far as hidden truths go. Some even say this city hidden beneath Gareg Mach existed before the monastery did, and it was only later that the church settled the mountains above. What, really? But that would make this place over 1,000 years old, right? Gareg Mach is a place of history, young lady. You shouldn't be too surprised to see its history is a long one. Yes, the monastery is having a history of much longness, Petra agreed. It is like the ruins in my homeland, where the ancient spirits are resting. This place does seem to hold an ancient air to it, Didu muttered as he glanced around for any sign of Dimitri. Aelfric smiled at the conversation. Indeed, the history of this place really is fascinating. I would like to share more of what I know, but we really should be on our way. Hold on. Byleth stopped and held up a hand, making the group pause. Byleth? What is it? Aelfric, what's that big structure? She asked, gesturing towards a large building they were coming close to. Ah, I believe it was once a reception hall, though it wasn't long ago it saw use as an underground arena, the Cardinal explained. It should be abandoned now though. I just saw a heavily armed group enter through that entrance. Oh. Ah, perhaps it is less abandoned than I expected. Didu, Petra, to the front with me. Leonie, you can keep Aelfric safe, right? Huh? Ah, yeah, I definitely can, though are you sure you should be taking the lead? The orange-haired student asked, visibly worried. I'm willing to admit you're pretty tough, but aren't you still injured? I'm healed enough, Byleth stated, before drawing the sword of the creator and heading for the arena. Did you have that under your coat this whole time? You know, I'm starting to think we should have brought more people, Claude commented as he loosed an arrow into another merc's head. Perhaps, Edelgard replied, catching a mercenary's sword on her shield before splitting his skull with her axe, though you were the one who insisted on the three of us going right away. Hey, I didn't realize our new friends would be ambushing this many mercs at once. He knocked another arrow, aimed, and fired straight into the back of an assassin trying to creep up on Hilda, who was busy carving her own bloody swathe through the baddies along with that childhood friend of hers. Besides, we did at least get some of our pals on our side. True, Lindhard has been surprisingly helpful for once, Edelgard commented. She bashed her shield into an armored merc and drove its side into his neck, crushing his throat between the steel and the floor. Who else would you have brought along, had you had the chance? Good question, honestly speaking. I think I actually got the team I'd pick for myself with Hilda and Shay here. Maybe I'd bring the rest of the deer, but for a 3-person team, I think we'd be doing great. He punctuated his statement by loosing another arrow, this one sailing across the arena to catch an assassin in the wrist before he could try to stab Dimitri. And hey, at least we got Ash from the Lions. He's probably one of the better options aside from Shay. Edelgard huffed in some amusement. Yes, I have noticed you tend to favor Professor Eisner's sister. Ash is one of the better options though. Oh sure, I'm always in favor of having another archer around. Volleys go a lot better when you can blot the sky out with arrows. Having Ignatz and Leonie is pretty good for that kind of thing. Ah, I see. I admit though, Edelgard moved to block an arrow before it could catch Claude in the side, then ducked her head so her fellow house leader could shoot the archer in question right in the eye. I am curious who you consider the best options out of the Lions. Shay is at the top, for sure, then I think Ash works just fine. Didu's got that big guy appeal going for him, can't go wrong with a solid wall of muscle, but he's also super loyal to Dimitri, so that means he's a package deal with him. Then I guess it's a toss-up with the Lancers and the Casters. All of them can be effective in different ways, but my opinion varies a bit. I guess out of them I'd go for Ingrid first. She's kind of a stick in the mud, but there's some fun to be had there. He considered things while looking across the battlefield, a slight smile coming to his face as he tracked Shay slicing her way through a squad of enemy mercs. Oh, and the worst is definitely Felix. Oh? What's so bad about Felix? Have you heard how he talks to Ingrid and Didu? Guy's a prick. I have no idea how the rest of the Faerghus 4 are friends with him, but I feel like it's just inertia by this point, like they liked him once upon a time and those good memories keep them hanging around. Look alive, people. Yuri called out from his own spot in the fray, his sword darting out and cutting through the legion of mercs they were having to deal with. Their newest maybe friend was still going strong from all appearances, barely looking winded as he split a man's chest with his sword. It looks like one more wave is incoming. Oh, great, just what we needed, Claude complained, earning an amused noise from Edelgard. And here I was getting invested in your opinions on our classmates. Heh, then ask me about them again after this, I've got plenty to share. What the hell is this? The mercenary in the lead exclaimed once he saw the gore-stained arena. His jaw dropped, but he shook it off quickly, before pointing his sword towards the two house leaders. Damn it, if this is a trap, we're turning it around. Go for the important-looking brats. And then the upper half of his body exploded into flames, prompting panicked shouts among his cohorts that were rather quickly cut off by a whip-like sword shredding through a good amount of their number. The ones that weren't didn't fare much better though, as some familiar faces came in and promptly started cleaving through throats and chests with a sword and an axe. Is that Petra and Didu? Claude asked, raising an eyebrow at the sight of his fellow students. Is that the professor? Edelgard exclaimed, her own focus fully on the sight of her teacher appearing out of nowhere to carve through several mercenaries at once. Which was understandable since she really should be resting. Oh, that's probably why that guy exploded. Oh, true, that would make sense. Friends of yours? Yuri asked, prompting glances from his fellow house leaders as he appeared right beside them. Yup, Claude replied, unfazed. Blue-haired lady is one of our professors and the other two are our classmates. Oh hey, Leonie's there too. She is. Edelgard frowned, trying to catch sight of the redhead before nodding as she saw the commoner in question stab through a mercenary with her lance. So she is. Heh, looks like we really are getting that backup I wanted. So hey, Yuri, do you mind letting your friends know not to kill our friends? Oh sure, the more the merrier. Hey, wolves. The three ladies and the large man down that way are on our side, he called out, catching the attention of his own classmates. We have reinforcements. Since when? Happy asked, staying by Ash as she and the archer provided covering fire. Or covering darkness, in Happy's case. Oh? So some good Samaritans have come to our aid then. Ahaha, fortune truly favors us. Constance declared, prompting a sigh from Linhard as he tried to keep the crazy mage between him and the enemy. What was that about hot ladies coming to save us? Balthus asked, right in the middle of crushing the windpipe of a mercenary he had in a chokehold. Edelgard sighed. Well, this should be interesting. You make it sound like we're gonna make a bad first impression, Princess, Yuri teased, grinning. Don't worry, I'll make sure everyone's on their best behavior once we finish up here. Somehow, I doubt that. Phew, it looks like we're reaching a lull in the, is that Didu? Dmitri exclaimed as he came up to his fellow house leaders, his eyes widening in shock as he noticed his retainer smashing his way through armored mercenaries. Bit slow on the uptake there, Dmitri, Claude responded. Though I suppose our sudden saviors are probably the best surprise we'll get. You pieces of shit, you killed all of my men, shouted a mercenary captain, visibly seething beneath his assassin's helm as he caught the house leader's attention. I might go down here, but I'll take you with. And that was when a leaping horse landed straight on top of the merc, demonstrating to all the students there what it looked like when a warhorse's hooves made contact with a man's head, which was quite similar to seeing a melon smashed with a warhammer. The death horse rides free once more, declared the Death Knight upon his steed, his black horse rearing up with a bloodthirsty whinny. The scent of fresh blood has drawn me to this place. Who shall the worms feast upon Tony? Then he noticed the house leaders. Is he also a friend of yours? Yuri asked, glancing at the students while the princess of the group was fully glaring at her absolute idiot of a subordinate. It was a little hard to tell, but Claude was pretty sure he could see sweat dripping down the Death Knight's helmet. It appears that the time is not yet right for my scythe to claim your lives. Bye. Well, I was about to say that was the worst surprise, but now that was just the weirdest. Edelgard pinched the bridge of her nose as the Death Knight vanished. Honestly, what a nuisance. Not normally how I'd describe a hulking knight in a skull helmet who nearly killed my professor, but you're not wrong, Claude commented, speaking of, hey teach. Oh, there you are. Byleth said, quiet casually as she cut the throat of a remaining mercenary. Who's your friend? The name's Yuri, I'm in charge of the little band down here. Am I correct in assuming you're Shay's sister? Yeah, nice to meet Dash. Bye. What are you doing down here? Shay shouted, having approached the group right after the fighting stopped. You should be in bed. You really should be resting, Professor, Edelgard agreed. I dunno, she looks fine to me, Yuri contradicted. No sense in making her leave if she's already here, Claude agreed in turn. How about we head back to the town before we continue this discussion? Dimitri suggested before the argument could start. That sounds like a good idea, Byleth agreed, though we should make sure Aelfric doesn't get left behind. Aelfric is with you? Yuri asked, a bit surprised as the clergyman jogged up to the group. My apologies, I fell a tad behind there, Aelfric said as he looked over the students. Thank you for assisting my flock in their time of need. Hey, weird dude, Shay spoke up, frowning, did you bring my sister down here? What did you just call Aelfric? Constance asked, agape at the audacity. Ah, please calm down, Aelfric said as he raised his hands. And yes, I did. I wanted her to meet my flock. And why exactly is that? Shay, calm down. He's a friend of Citrai and Geralt. Oh. Okay, sorry about that, Shay apologized, backing off. It's alright, I can appreciate how protective you are of your sister, Aelfric replied with a smile. Though I hope you're okay with us showing her the town. Yeah, sure, okay, Shay huffed, looking neither sure nor okay with that suggestion. Thank you. In that case, I hope you don't mind if I ask you a favor, Professor, Aelfric said as he smiled, catching Byleth's attention. So, apparently Aelfric wanted Byleth to help teach the Ashen Wolves. She didn't particularly mind that favor really, as she was ready to start teaching again, so what were 4 more students? Well, technically 5 since Marianne just joined her class. Should she try recruiting from other classes? She liked the idea of having more students. Though, that thought took a backseat as she began to look around the abyss, checking in on the students that she brought with her. Hey bye, come on, you really should go back to get some rest. While also trying not to be annoyed by Shay. She couldn't really blame her, since she had acted the same after Shay had almost died against Lonato, but still. I'm fine, Shay. My wounds don't even hurt anymore. I kinda want to poke you to prove that they still do hurt, but I also don't want to hurt you. Then I guess you just have to be okay with me being down here, Byleth responded, getting Shay to huff as they walked around. Their first stop being a scrap pile. Whoa, guys, look at this. Leonie cried out from the scrap heap. Who threw this away? She asked, holding up a dented hex shield. You'd be surprised at what people throw away, Balthus commented as Leonie kept digging through the heap. But that's a hex shield. I could scrape together money for a year and still not have enough coin for one. It's not even badly dented. Leonie yelled, before pulling out a lance. This isn't even in bad condition, it's just really rusted. This can easily be fixed. Eesh, I don't think even anyone down here is this excited about the scrap heap, Balthus muttered before glancing at Byleth. Well, as you can see, this is the scrap heap. Any gear that gets thrown away topside ends up here, and you can usually find something good down here. Good to know. It definitely seems useful. Shay huffed, amused this time. PFT, looking to get something new to replace that sword you have, bye. No, but it's still handy to know about. Yeah, sometimes you find something in good condition that's worth a decent amount of gold, Balthus added, always handy to have when I need some booze. Byleth nodded to herself. I'm going to see how everyone else is doing. Turning on her feet, Byleth headed out, with Shay following behind her. You don't need to follow me. What, I can't hang out with my sister. Shay replied, acting casual despite how obvious it was that she was still keeping an eye on Byleth. Besides, I can be your guide down here. Oh, alright. I didn't realize you knew that much about Abyss. Oh totally. I know everything there is to know about the Abyss. In fact, oh, hey, haven't been in there before, she commented before heading off towards what looked like a library. Byleth sighed at her sister's antics, but followed along to find her hanging out with Claude. They have forbidden books down here? Shay asked, looking at the tome Claude was holding. That they do, Shay, that they do. It looks like anything the church bans winds up down here. Pretty convenient for me, right? Yeah, really convenient. Though you're probably gonna get in trouble if you try to bring any back up with you. That's only if I get caught with them. Well, there was only one thing for Byleth to do after hearing that, which was heading right over and taking the book Claude had in his hands away from him. Wah, Mentich, you don't trust me? I trust you. I just find it funny to catch you off guard. Claude blinked at that frank admission before Byleth turned the book over in her hands. Huh, no title. Oh, a mystery book, Shay said, staring curiously at the blank cover and earning a chuckle from Claude. Yeah, it looks like a fair few of these are damaged. So, would you mind giving that back so I can try to find out what it is? Byleth ignored him and opened the book up herself. How to compliment a lover. Claude blinked. Huh. Shay, meanwhile, glanced at her friend with a slight grin. Oh? You're interested in that kind of stuff, Claude? No, I'm not. Claude argued, almost reflexively from what it seemed. Byleth tried not to smile. It was a bit more difficult than usual. You know, just because you're trying to court Shay doesn't mean you should read a book about pick-up lines. PFTT. Shay started laughing loudly at that, holding her gut as she doubled over in laughter. Does His Highness have a crush on me? Hey now, I'm not Lysithea, Claude deflected, immediately throwing his fellow deer under the carriage without hesitation. PFT, oh please, Lysithea doesn't have a crush on me, Shay replied, waving the suggestion off, she's just teaching me magic. I mean, I guess she's my buddy? But yeah, there's no crush there. Byleth sighed, sharing an exasperated look with Claude before she returned the book to its place on the bookshelf and picked out a different one. Claude, I think most of these are books on dating. What? Seriously? Claude frowned as he went over to the shelves and started looking through, his frown getting deeper before he abruptly shut the book he was reading. Right, going to be awkward going into that room with the saint statues now. What? Why's that? Shay asked, moving over to look at the book Claude had, though he tossed it to Byleth before Shay could get it. Hey. Kmin, I wanted to read that. Yeah, no, you didn't. Byleth, meanwhile, opened up the book, read a few lines, then placed it back on the shelf, before she casually picked out one that looked more interesting and slipped it into her coat before Shay would notice. I can see why so many of these books were banned, Byleth said. Try not to stick around here, Claude. Fine, Claude muttered, shaking his head as Byleth and Shay left. So. Lysithea is teaching you magic. Yeah, she's pretty skilled at dark magic, so it's nice having someone help me out with that. Shay explained with a grin. Though, like I said, she doesn't have a crush on me. And if she did? Byleth asked, deciding to needle Shay in return for all her previous teasing. Well, she's cute. You know, like an angry rabbit. Though she's also a noble, so not sure how well being a traveling merc will help with dating someone who has to stay somewhere. So she's cute, huh? Oh, you are not turning this around on me. I'm just repeating what you said, Byleth said, a small grin on her face as she walked ahead of Shay, looking for the other students. Thankfully, they didn't have to go far as they found Dedu and Dimitri talking with one another. Your Highness, I must ask that you not go on such a dangerous mission without letting me accompany you. My apologies, Dedu, I had no idea it would be so dangerous to begin with. As it is, I only intended to follow Claude to see what exactly he had seen. It was still dangerous. You should have gotten more backup, Byleth said, getting their attention. I understand that, Professor. Still, at least things turned out well. Thankfully. I owe you some gratitude as well, Professor. Thank you for bringing me along on this mission, Dedu said, bowing to her. No need to thank me, Byleth replied as she nodded to him. Just make sure to keep an eye on him. I can take care of myself, Professor, Dimitri responded, mostly in good humor. I'm sure. Byleth nodded to him too before walking off with a silent Shay in tow. You're being quiet. Yeah, it's just a bit awkward is all. Since I'm planning on transferring out. Did you want to talk about it? I mean, what's there to talk about? I'm not enjoying it as much as I would like, so I figured the Golden Deer would be a better choice. Well, if that's what you want to do. Yeah, guess I lucked out by being the student instead of the professor, huh? I get the option to leave, rather than stay like you gotta. I guess so. Still, I think I'd stick with the Black Eagles even if I had the option. It was rough at the start, but I enjoy being with them. I've helped them and they helped me. Really? Yeah, it's thanks to Edelgard that I was able to, at the very least, confront my issues with Catherine. I don't know if we're friends, but at the very least, I know I have a ways to go before I can fight her again. Well, that explains that. Yeah. Also, interesting that you're joining the class that Claude and Lysithea are in. I swear to the goddess Dash. I'm just pointing that out. And also how Leonie, your rival, is also in the class. Not to mention Hilda, who you apparently called adorable. You're really lucky you're injured right now or I'd punch you. Byleth pouted. My baby sister is being so mean to her poor, injured older sister. How cruel. That twitch was new. You know, maybe I'll just join the wolves instead and live underground for the rest of my school year. Alright, I'll make sure to tell Papa. Try to get some sun or you'll get pale. You could at least pretend to entertain the idea. No. Besides. I forgive you, ahahaha. Turning her head towards the loud laugh that caught her attention, Byleth saw Constance standing by Edelgard and Petra. Excuse me? Petra asked, seemingly very confused. There is no need for you to be excused. What's going on? Byleth asked as she approached the group. Oh hello, Professor Byleth, correct? Allow me to properly introduce myself. My name is Constance von Novelli. The blonde ashen wolf declared as she fanned herself. I must thank you again for coming to our rescue. She didn't do much, Shay muttered, but Byleth ignored that. Just glad I could help, but what's going on here? If I can explain, I believe Constance is trying to say she bears no ill will to Petra for what happened during the Dada and Brigid War, Edelgard suggested. And I don't. If I am to restore House Novelli, then I cannot be stuck in the past mired with grudges. Constance stated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some spells I must practice. Turning on her heel, Constance walked away. Wait. Petra called out, following behind her, leaving Edelgard alone with the sisters. Professor, are you sure you should be walking around? I'm good, I'm already healed up, Byleth said, pouting a bit at how much people kept trying to get her to rest. Nah, you've got the right idea, Your Highness. I definitely shouldn't be walking around like this. Shay declared, clapping a hand to her sister's shoulder. She's so frail and weak right now, she should really just lay down and let her super strong sister handle everything for her, gh. Byleth lowered her elbow from where she'd rammed it into her sister's stomach. I'm fine, like I said. Very well. Professor, while I have you here, I did want to ask you something. At her nod, Edelgard continued. You've traveled across Fodlan before, correct? I wanted to know if you could tell me about your travels, perhaps after you left in Bear. Oh, is this about the Dada and Brigid War? Shay asked. I mentioned she talked to Petra about it before, so I think we're cool on that front. Maybe I should talk to her too? Edelgard paused, not expecting that response. It wasn't exactly what I was thinking of, but you were a combatant in that war. Oh sure. Well, kind of. I hung back since I got stabbed, so Byleth was on more missions there. Our mercenary band was hired by Count Varley to protect his territory during it. Before Count Burgley's counterattacked, Byleth elaborated, we mostly hunted down scouting parties that made it past the mountains though. That and the occasional band of deserters. Like Shay said, I talked with Petra about it before. I see. Yes, I suppose you would want to discuss the subject with her. May I ask what you did after that though? Byleth tilted her head, thinking. We went west through the mountains, then up into Faerghus. Edelgard nodded as though Byleth just confirmed something for her. Understood. Thank you, Professor, for satisfying my curiosity. That's all you wanted to know? Shay asked. Would have thought you'd be asking for something more interesting than that. Edelgard shrugged. I was just curious. I doubt your journey had anything of interest after that point. An interesting look came to her eyes. Was there? Well, Byleth learned light magic, that was pretty cool. Then I guess we went to Faerghus after that. Which sucked, it's super cold up there. Yes, I can't say I'm too fond of the Faerghus cold either, Edelgard murmured. Oh, you've been up there too, Princess. Some years ago, yes. It was, well, perhaps I will tell the story later. For now, weren't you checking on everyone, Professor? Oh, right. See you later then, Byleth said before heading off once more with Shay in tow, the younger mercenary still sticking close to make sure her sister was okay. The last of her students to find would be Linhard, and he was bound to be either studying something or napping, which meant he would probably be in the library, but she was just there and only saw Claude, so Where was her sleepy student? In front of a pagan altar, apparently. Oh, hello Professor. And Shay too, Linhard offhandedly greeted, busy staring up at the huge statue of a winged goddess. I must say, it is fascinating to see a statue like this directly beneath what most would consider the home of Fodlan's own goddess. I wonder if that would make our friend here a trespasser or a guest. Probably a guest, yeah. Shay said while Byleth idly studied the statue. I don't think the goddess minds if another god decides to relax in her basement. You have a more tolerant view of faith than most, Shay. Still, it is a shame we have no easy access to knowledge regarding the gods of other lands. The church may say there are no true gods but the goddess herself, yet other lands often worship entire pantheons. It raises questions, don't you think? Careful there, friend. It might be fine to ask questions like that down here, but you'll probably get accused of blasphemy if you ask similar things up top, Yuri chided as he walked over to them with a faint grin on his face. And I'd hate to lose a friend so soon after meeting them. But something like this is far too fascinating to just keep to myself. I wonder if I could find some texts on who this god is. I'm sure you can find something. Plenty of secrets tend to squirrel themselves away down here. He turned his gaze towards Byleth with a faint smile. I'm sure you have your own that you want to keep. Byleth shrugged in response. I guess. Hey, do you know where Hilda or Ash are? Can't say anything about the young boy, but as for the Goneril girl, I believe I saw her visiting the Wazir. She certainly seemed interested when she learned what exactly she does. Tilting her head in confusion, Byleth went to where he gestured, before finding Hilda sitting at a table where a cloaked woman had her hands over a crystal ball. Oh, that's definitely going to be blackmail material. What is? Byleth asked, getting Hilda to look at her. Oh hey there Professor, Shay. Hilda greeted them as she looked back on them. You'll get a kick out of this lady can see how close people are. She can. Yeah, well, specifically she can see who's closest to someone. Oh, can you check to see who the professor is closest to? Hilda asked the seer, who let out a sigh before focusing on her crystal ball. It seems she is closest to her sister. PFT, I could have told you that, Shay said with a grin. Ah, that's no fun, Hilda complained, pouting, how can I tease her about that? You know I can hear you, right? Byleth asked. Oh well, at least I have something to tease Shay about, Hilda said with a sigh, as she hid a smirk. What are you talking about? Shay asked. Oh you know, I decided to ask who your mentor is closest to. Huh. Oh. Byleth seemed very intrigued all of a sudden, which made Shay pause. Hey, I already said she didn't have a crush on me. Really? Hilda asked in a teasing tone, catching Shay off guard. Looking between the two, Shay felt her face begin to burn, before she took off running. Feels nice turning the tables on her, Byleth said, nodding to herself. Make sure to take care, Hilda. Sure thing, Professor. Walking out, Byleth began to look for Shay before she could get lost, only to find Ash speaking with Happy. "Oh, hello there Professor Byleth, how are you feeling?" "I'm doing okay, have either of you seen Shay?" "Nope, and do you mind getting this kid to stop bothering me?" Happy said, getting Ash to look sheepish. I was just curious as to why she can apparently summon demonic beasts by sighing. Though I guess it's something personal." "It is." Sorry to bother you Happy." "Ash, we should meet up with everyone else." "Right, Professor," Ash said, giving an apologetic smile to Happy as they walked away. "Also, did Shay go somewhere?" Hopefully not. She might get lost easily down here, and who knows what's down here." "Well shit, where am I?" Shay asked, looking around as she realized she might have gone too deep into Abyss. "Maybe don't go running down several hallways in the underground town next time," Arvel suggested as they appeared behind her. "Well, what was I supposed to do?" Shay asked as she tried to backtrack her way out. "Don't get flustered over the possibility of someone having a crush on you. Easy for you to say. It is, and it should be for you as well. You don't have a crush on her, right?" "I don't. I mean she's my friend and all, but I dunno, I've read stuff involving romance before, I just never thought I'd actually have to deal with stuff like that," Shay muttered as she kept walking. "Well, get used to it, or else your sister will begin to tease you about it, and I refuse to allow you to lose purely from embarrassment," Arvel responded, before Shay walked into a wide-open room. "Okay, I think we're getting somewhere," Shay said as she looked around. Though it was still creepy with how quiet things were down here. "Anyone there?" Shay called out, getting no response. "Ugh. Seriously, how big is this place?" "Partner." "What's up Arvel?" Shay asked, glancing up at the spirit, who wordlessly lifted an arm to point somewhere in the dark. Following their arm, Shay saw what he was pointing at. In a strangely illuminated part of the room, a body lay down on a stone table. The woman, wearing a white gown, her long green hair spilling out around her head, seemed to be resting, as if she could wake up at any moment. And, the more she looked at her, the more Shay saw the similarities between the strange woman and her sister. What the hell? Chapter 54, Digging Deeper. "Oh, there you are, Professor," Edelgard greeted as Byleth walked up. "Hey, have you seen Shay?" Byleth asked, getting Edelgard to blink in surprise. "No? I thought she was with you." "She was, but I can't find her." Shay is a strong girl, I'm sure she can take care of herself," Claude said. "That is true, but she has also admitted to getting lost easily," Dimitri responded. "Oh, that isn't good, perhaps while you go on your mission, I can look around for her," Aelfric asked, getting Byleth's attention. "Mission? We're going looking for what we think those mercenaries are after," Yuri answered. "Yes. While we cannot say for certain, our dear Aelfric has informed us of a legend that they might be seeking," Constance stated, "the fabled Chalice of Beginnings, said to have the power to raise the dead." "Well, okay," Byleth accepted, "good luck with that. I'm going to try and find Shay." "You're not going with us?" Balthus asked. "It would be best to find her before she gets truly lost," Dida noted. "In that case, I shall go with the professor. None are as good at tracking as I," Petra declared. "Hey, I don't know how good Bridget hunters are, but don't underestimate my tracking skills." Leonie cut in with a grin, earning a challenging smirk from Petra in reply. "Well, sticking around here does sound like it's not as much of a hassle," Happy muttered. "I volunteer to stay in the town in case Shay comes wandering back," Hilda said, eager to not put in the effort. "Seconded," Lindhart said with a yawn. I don't know how well splitting the group will be," Aelfric said. "Are you sure? I mean, there's so many of us, that I'm sure we can cover both objectives easily," Ash responded, getting Aelfric to frown. It would mean some of us are here in case any more mercenaries attack," Edelgard muttered. "Yeah, don't worry, I can dash," and before Byleth could assure the protection of the Abyss, a loud yell cut her off. "Bye!" Shay shouted, as she came running up. "Oh, there you are Dash. Byleth couldn't help but trail off as she saw what her sister was running up with. Namely a body in her arms. "What are you doing with Citrai?" Aelfric exclaimed, which earned him a lot of surprised stares. "Citrai? Who's Citrai?" Claude asked. "My mother," Byleth murmured, stunned, before moving closer to Shay. Aelfric took a half step towards her too, but stopped himself while Byleth stared at the body of her mother. Why is she down here? She should be buried at the monastery." "I don't know. It's insane, right?" Shay agreed, looking about as baffled as most of the students felt. "I just found her down here and she looked so much like you and I don't even get why she'd be here." "I don't either," Byleth said, staring as she felt something ache in her. Perhaps we should find somewhere to lay her down for now," Aelfric suggested, trying to figure out what to do for his plan. "If I may, Aelfric, you seemed surprised that Shay had the professor's mother," Edelgard spoke up, staring at the monk. "Well, yes, why wouldn't I be? It was your specific wording. Normally one would be surprised at seeing the body of someone they thought passed away long ago, rather than ask what someone was doing with them." "You better not be accusing Aelfric of something," Balthus interrupted, cracking his knuckles with a glare. "Hey now, I'm not saying Edelgard is right, but it is suspicious, especially since Aelfric is supposed to be in charge down here," Claude noted. Constance scoffed. "I refuse to listen to such baseless accusations." "Yeah, Elfie isn't a bad person," Happy agreed. "Everyone, please, be at peace," Aelfric interrupted, holding up his hands to ward off any violence as the groups of students started to square off. "Please, all I did was misspeak." "That's a pretty shoddy excuse," Claude pointed out with a faint smirk, keeping his eyes on the wolves, who bristled at his comment. As the tension continued to grow, Byleth silently stood by Shay, before reaching out to hold her mother. Concern evident on her face, Shay handed her over. Byleth couldn't think of what to say as she stared down at her mother. All she could do was stare at her, looking like she was resting peacefully. And the next thing she knew, drops of water seemed to fall upon Citrai's face. Concern filled Byleth as she knelt down to try and clean off Citrai's face. "Byleth," Shay said, getting her sister's attention as she knelt down too. Reaching up, Shay wiped the tears off her sister's face, before pulling her into a hug. Nearby, the tension seemed to fade away as the sound of Byleth crying caught the attention of everyone. "Shay, perhaps you should take the professor and her mother up to the monastery," Edelgard suggested, getting Shay to silently nod as she stood back up. Wait, I don't know if it's a good idea to take her," Aelfric cut in, trying to stop them. "Yes, perhaps we should figure out why exactly she is down here," Yuri said. "I don't care about that," Shay responded, glaring at them. "Are you sure? I mean, she was supposedly buried, correct? Then someone must have dug her up, though the question is who would be debased enough to do so," Yuri said, a curious tone in his voice. Yes, to defile a grave is a horrible thing to do. Whoever did this, must pay for it," Dimitri stated. "They're probably also perverse," Claude noted. "I mean really, what kind of freak would dig up a lady just to keep her around? Sounds like a real sicko." I am not. I didn't even dig her up, I found her down here," Aelfric shouted, immediately realizing his mistake as everyone stared at him. "Aelfric." Constance broke the silence, staring at him in disbelief. "Please tell me you misspoke there as well." "Well, he obviously did misspeak. He said too much there," Claude commented with a smug smirk. "Hey, you shut up," Balthus shouted, before he turned to face Aelfric. "Come on, Aelfric, he's wrong, right?" Aelfric racked his mind for an excuse, another option beside admitting the truth, and couldn't come up with anything. 10 years ago, I found her body down here. I didn't dig her up, I swear to the goddess that I would never do that to Citrai." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Ash asked, completely taken aback. "Who was I supposed to tell? After Citrai passed away all those years ago, I lost my trust in Rhea. And to suddenly find her body down here even though she was supposed to be buried? How could I ever talk about that?" "You could have at least buried her or something," Hilda muttered, unsure of what else to say. There are several methods of funeral rites, Petra said, agreeing with Hilda. It may not be my place to speak, but you should have at least told the professor, Dida spoke up as he stared down at the monk. How could I have explained this to her? Citrai, she died 20 years ago, and yet it's like not a single day has passed. It's still her mom. Her and the captain have the right to decide what to do with her. Leonie shouted. I was weak. I found a body that seemed almost perfectly preserved down her end. I was afraid that if I touched her, she might have crumbled away. Hence why I left her there. I even set up wards that were supposed to guide people away from her. Aelfric sighed, trying to keep up the lie as he glanced at Shay. I guess they weren't as effective as I thought. Yeah, sure. Look, I don't care what kind of reasons you have, but Byleth and I are leaving, and we're taking Mrs. Citrai with us, Shay said, keeping a protective arm around Byleth. That. Aelfric tried to think of what to say. Excuse me, but weren't you just telling us about the Chalice of the Beginnings? An item that could supposedly raise the dead. Lindhart asked, as he raised his hand. What? Shay asked, having not heard of that. I only heard about that legend. I never went out to seek it. Yeah, if Elfie was really looking for it, he would have asked us to help him find it or something. I don't care, Byleth said, getting everyone's attention. I don't care about what reason he had, or whatever this chalice is. I'm taking my mom, and I'm going to bury her. Aelfric sighed, knowing he had lost. Of course, I can allow that. Though, if I may, I would like to at least speak to Lady Rhea before you do. I understand I have been cowardly by not taking these steps before now, and I hope you can forgive me. Pretty sure you should mention what happened to Dad before you talk to Rhea, Shay pointed out, still frowning at Aelfric. Yes, of course. I'll make sure to let Geralt know too. I owe him that much. But, please, I don't think it would be a good idea to carry Citrai through the monastery as she is. At the very least, she should be prepared for burial. Okay, Byleth said, frowning even as she agreed. I'm going to find somewhere to lay her down. Ah, the Ashen Wolves have our own makeshift dormitories, if that would work, Constance offered. Thank you, Byleth said, before following behind the blonde noble. Aelfric sighed, before steeling himself. Yuri, if you would please keep an eye on everyone, I'll make sure to return as soon as I can. Of course, Yuri accepted, nodding to Aelfric as the monk left. Perhaps it would be best if we all took a moment to relax, lest the tension returns. That sounds for the best, Edelgard agreed, before following behind the two sisters, though giving them some space as she waited outside the dormitories. Surprisingly, it wasn't Constance that walked out first, but Shay. Ah, hey there, princess, Shay greeted, giving her a slight wave. Hello, how is the professor doing? About as well as she can be, I guess, Shay muttered. You mind doing me a favor? I'm going to be going on the monthly mission soon, so I won't be able to keep an eye on Byleth while I'm gone, so I was hoping you could help with that. Of course, if there is any way I can help, then I'll gladly do so. Shay smiled. Heh, you know, I know it hasn't been that long, but thanks for being friends with Byleth. That gave Edelgard some pause. There just wasn't any hint of guile or deception in Shay's voice. From all indications, she genuinely meant that. You are welcome. Though I will note that she is my professor and I am her student. We're not exactly. Nah, you're friends, I can tell. So, again, thanks. Edelgard huffed, a small smile of her own creeping up her face. You are welcome. It's the least I can do after all she's done. Oh yeah, didn't she save your life when we first met? Shay asked, before a grin spread on her face. What, don't tell me you got a crush on her because of that. I would appreciate you not mock me. I have no such feelings towards Professor Byleth. Sure, sure. Just keep in mind, even if you're a princess, you gotta have my permission, Shay teased, getting Edelgard to huff. Ah, am I intruding in something? Constance asked as she walked out. Not at all, Edelgard said as she turned to her. Is the professor okay? Of course. I made sure she went to sleep since she looked absolutely exhausted, Constance stated before turning to Shay. And I would like to offer my sincerest apologies for what Aelfric has done. If I was aware of what he kept hidden, I would have made him come forth about it. Look, no offense, but I don't know any of you guys. I don't know how much you do know, I'm sure you mean well, but you can see why I'm not going to trust you, alright? Yes, of course. In that case, I just have to show you the sincerity of House Novelli. Constance declared, getting Shay to look confused at her sudden exuberance. There you guys are. Looking over, the trio saw Happy standing nearby. Yuri said we should talk about what to do. I thought we were going to wait for Aelfric to return. Edelgard pointed out. Yeah, but we still have to deal with those mercenaries. I'm not sure what exactly Elfie might have been planning, but those guys are still the immediate danger. Shay let out a sigh. Hey, Edelgard, do you mind sticking by my sister? You want me to stay by her? What about you? Look, I already said I don't trust these guys. So whatever they do, I'm keeping an eye on them. And I want to at least keep someone I trust keeping an eye on Byleth. Very well, I promise to keep her safe. Edelgard said, nodding to Shay. As they walked off, Edelgard entered the dormitory. Seeing her professor silently sleeping, she couldn't help but contemplate her plans. Shay was an Agarthan, of that she was sure, but, even so, it was clear Shay did love her sister. If she was tricking her, Edelgard would make sure Shay paid for it, but for now, she wouldn't tell Bias what she learned. Sometime later, Edelgard felt a yawn threaten to leave her mouth as she looked over her professor. It had been a long time since the expedition group had left, and while it was hard to keep track of time down here, it definitely felt like it was getting late. A part of her idly thought that Hubert was likely panicking at not being able to find her, before she was broken out of her thoughts by a tray of food being shoved in her face. Jolting backwards, Edelgard followed the tray to see Leonie smiling down at her. Hey there, you really need to make sure to get something to eat. Oh, thank you, Leonie, Edelgard said, taking the tray from her. No problem, just hope you don't mind that I made it. It's nothing fancy but it's filling, Leonie said as she sat down next to her. It looks delicious, Edelgard complimented before she began to eat, almost immediately gagging as she did. Yeah, I did my best, but well, the food they have down here isn't great. I see. Edelgard coughed slightly, trying to clear the taste. I understand that this place might be a refuge for criminals and the like, but one would think that since it's still connected to the church, that they would at least have the funds for good food. It's not that surprising. I mean, it's nice that the church gives us free food and all, but we still had to pay to come here. Hell, I'm going to be in debt for at least a few years after I graduate. That got Edelgard to blink in surprise. You will. Yeah, this place isn't cheap after all, and unlike Ignatz and Raphael, I'm not part of a merchant family. My entire village had to scrape the funds to send me here. I see. That was something Edelgard hadn't really thought about before. Given her own wealth of funds, it never occurred how much the entry fee would be to commoners. Really, most commoners would normally only be able to join if they had a noble patron. Something up, Edelgard. Ah, no, you just gave me something to think about for my reforms for when I become emperor, Edelgard said, before looking around. Where is Ash? Oh, he's sitting outside. 'Cause it's apparently inappropriate for a guy to enter the girls' dorm. Leonie shouted, directing the last part to the door. It is. Ash shouted back, getting Leonie to laugh. Ha ha ha. Ah, anyways, how's Byleth doing? Still asleep, Edelgard replied. I think she may have exhausted herself more than she expected with the combat earlier. Yeah, that sounds like her. She's always been confident, as long as I've known her. I used to think it was some sense of superiority she had, the way she seemed so cool and collected all the time, but, she scratched her head, letting out a sigh. I guess I let my own ideas of what she's like get away from me when I was younger. How long have you known the professor? Not that long. I just met her and her sister a few years ago. I was 13, I think Byleth was 14 since she's a year older, and Shay, I'm not actually sure. She's always been kind of tall for a girl and it's tricky to tell. If I asked Shay, she'd probably say she was 14 too, or even 15, but Byleth would probably say she was 11. Leonie shrugged. My point is, I mostly met them for a few days before they had to head out again. I liked Shay immediately because she saved me from some poachers that were attacking our town, and I didn't like Byleth at all because she seemed super arrogant to me. I didn't really get that she was just, I don't know if there's a word for it. Just, weird, I guess. Ah, yeah, I get what you mean, Ash said, having listened in from outside. It's a bit different for me but, it's silly to think about now, but back when I first met Shay and Byleth, I thought of them as some invincible heroes cause of the stories Shay used to tell me and my siblings. After what happened to Kristoff, it became obvious that they were just kids, like me. I never actually got to say goodbye to Byleth when she left, and, Shay just looked so worried about her when she said goodbye. Edelgard hummed, considering matters. If Shay had been part of Geralt's mercenaries since she was that young. It is strange to think about them like that, but it's easy to forget that the two of them are our age, despite their years of experience. Yeah, that's true. Heck, isn't Mercedes older than Byleth? Leonie asked. I think so, yes, Ash confirmed. Edelgard let out a small sigh as she got up, tray in hand since she had finished eating. Well, I suppose that is something to dash. Feeling something run over her foot, Edelgard was unable to keep the instinctive scream out of her mouth, practically flinging the tray out of her hands as she backed away from the rat that scurried across the floor. What happened? Ash yelled, running in with his bow drawn as his eyes scanned the room. My apologies. I just felt a rat scurry over my foot, Edelgard muttered, really wishing she had brought Whiskers down with her. Oh, is that all? I thought you just really didn't like the food I made, Leonie joked, trying to ease Edelgard's nerves with a laugh. Well, at least it wasn't anything bad. Ash said, going over to grab the now dented tray. I'm just glad that didn't wake the professor up. Huh. Confused, Edelgard glanced over to Byleth. That was odd. She didn't know how exactly the professor slept, but one would think a mercenary would have awoken at a sudden loud banging of a metal tray hitting a stone wall. Yet, it looked as though she was still peacefully sleeping. Professor Dash, and before she could get any further, a loud scream from outside cut her off. Fire! Instantly on guard, Edelgard rushed towards the door. Both of you stay here. Edelgard commanded as she went towards the source of the scream. A scowl came to her face as she spotted the raging fires that had begun to consume parts of Abyss. The ramshackle wooden buildings were lighting up quickly, catching like tinder as she spotted more mercenaries in rough armor, led by heavy knights in full plate. Run away, little rats, one of the armored mercenaries yelled, the hammer in his hand smashing one of the town's few guards off his feet. Don't think we won't kill every last one of. Edelgard's fireball caught the distracted mercenary in the head in an eruption of flames and molten steel as he went from yelling to screaming. Edelgard didn't slow though, drawing on the strength of her crest as she slammed her palm into his chest and cast another fire, silencing his screams in an instant. Wah, Captain, another armored mercenary yelled, staring in shock and horror as her leader crumpled, you little bitch. I'll take your head. Wait, the boss wanted the students alive, a mercenary in mage robes called out, but the knight wasn't listening, instead charging for the princess as she took the hammer and shield from the fallen captain. Edelgard took a breath as she recalled seeing her professor do so many times before, then angled the shield. When the knight charged, she moved, letting the armored knight's spear skid off the shield, bringing her in close enough for Edelgard to swing the hammer straight into the mercenary's head. She didn't even notice her crest flaring up as she did. The enemy mercenaries did though, and more than a few jaws dropped as they saw a tiny waif of a girl smash the head off of a fully armored knight. The lieutenant's helmeted head flew free in a spray of blood, before Edelgard stepped forward with an imperious glare. Holy shit, how did? So that's what a crest can do. Gee goddess, she's a monster. Fuck this, I'm not dying for some damned cult, no matter the gold they're giving me. Edelgard stiffened, before her eyes locked on the mercenary that spoke last, who froze before he could run. What did you just say? Hi, the man squealed, before turning and running along with the rest of his mercenary band as a scowl came to Edelgard's lips. Pathetic cowards. Scoffing, Edelgard turned to the nearest resident. Are there any buckets we can use to carry water over? Why yes, miss. Then bring them over, we need to hurry before the fire gets any worse. Oh, of course. The man responded as he began to gather other residents to carry water over. Nodding as she sees them move, Edelgard went back to the dormitories to inform Leonie and Ash what happened. Her heart stopped as she saw the bodies of mercenaries on the ground, arrows and spear wounds littering their bodies. Rushing forward, Edelgard found Ash and Leonie on the ground, groaning in pain. What happened? Edelgard asked, crouching down by the two, silently cursing herself for not having any bandages on hand for the two. As some mercenaries came rushing towards us after you left, Leonie explained, holding her bruised arm. They took the professor, Ash managed to gasp out as he tried to push himself up. What? Feeling her blood run cold, Edelgard ran into the room, and found that the bed where her professor was, lay empty, while Citri's body remained on hers. Gritting her teeth, Edelgard slammed her fist into the wall hard enough to crack it. Someone was going to pay dearly for this. Chapter 55, Shay Eisner and the Chalice of Beginnings. Shay had to admit, she would normally be really happy right now. She was on an adventure, searching for a mysterious artifact, and fighting a legion of ghostly warriors. It was the type of story she'd read about as a kid. Normally, this would be the best thing to ever happen to her. It's just, well, her sister wasn't there. She didn't need to have Byleth by her all the time, she wasn't that clingy, but it did mess things up a little since Byleth was still injured and then there was that stuff with that weirdo Aelfric guy and Mrs. Citri. It just made things feel weird, and while she wasn't about to get distracted in the middle of a fight, it was still kind of a downer, like a cloud hanging over everything. You doing okay over there, Shay? Claude called out, catching Shay's attention as she cut through a ghost knight's neck, splitting its phantom head from its phantom neck before she hopped off its ghost horse. Which also vanished when the knight did, which was weird. Yeah, I'm fine. Any luck on the chalice hunt? Not much, though Dimitri and crew found a giant living statue. Shay's eyes immediately lit up with obvious interest and excitement. Where? Over that way, and she's gone already. Claude huffed in some amusement, before raising his bow and loosing an arrow into another phantom cavalier, killing it and the horse at the same time. Somehow. I wonder if the horses are part of the ghost, or it just leaves when the knight dies. Not hearing his query, Shay rushed towards where Claude gestured, finding Dimitri and Didu up against a giant statue, who was currently trying to smash Didu into the ground as Dimitri circled around it. And while she definitely wanted to help her friend, she couldn't help but grin at how freaky looking it looked, since its head had a knight helm, while its chest was a lion face. They also had two shields bearing the crest of Ceros on its shoulders. And as interesting as that was, Shay immediately rushed in to slash at the statue. Begone from this place. The statue shouted as it tried to retaliate. It can talk. Shay shouted in surprise while dodging its arm. Now is not the time to be in awe, Didu reprimanded, smashing his axe into the statue while he had some slight reprieve. But this is awesome. Shay shouted back, only for her excitement to end as Dimitri's spear pierced the statue, causing it to stutter, before falling limp. Ah, damn it. I'm sorry. Dimitri apologized, not really sure what the problem was. Letting out a huff, Shay looked at the statue, before noticing something hanging from it. Is that a key? Huh, so it is. Dimitri muttered. Oh, I believe I heard Yuri mentioning something about stones that looked like they had keyholes in them. In that case, guess it's up to me to save the day. Shay shouted as she grabbed the key, before running off. Shay, you're running away from the battle. She turned around and began to run off again. In the right direction. What are you doing back here? Claude asked, prompting Shay to pause. She frowned. I have no idea where I'm supposed to bring this key. Well, I can't exactly help with that. He glanced upwards. Why not ask the mopey lady Novelli up there? Shay glanced up at the noble on her Pegasus and a grin came to her face. Good idea. Be right back. And she promptly vanished in a flash, which earned a slightly worried look from Claude. Did she just? Meanwhile, all the way up in the air, Constance von Novelli abruptly found herself feeling somewhat cramped as a random young woman appeared on her steed with her. Ah, so this is how I die. How appropriately pathetic. Shay blinked. Geez, you really don't handle the sun well. Why do you ride a Pegasus if you are not good with bright spaces? I apologize for my incongruous abilities. For your what? No, never mind. Where's the statue thingy? My apologies for not understanding what you mean. This thing. Where does this thing go? Shay said, shoving the key in front of Constance. Oh, well, I may be mistaken, but there is a large source of magical energy over there, Constance said as she pointed at an area near the cliff. Thanks. There is no need to thank Dash, and before she could finish putting herself down, Shay disappeared again. She truly was in a hurry to get away from me. Shay, meanwhile, appeared by the cliff face and immediately noticed a stone podium that had a hole in it. There we go. With a grin, she shoved the key in, before hearing a small rumble. Glancing around confused, Shay heard the sounds of battle die down as the statues went limp and the phantoms disappeared. Huh? Is that it? Balthus asked, looking around as if he wasn't covered in scrapes and bruises. Don't tell me you want to fight more, Hilda complained with a sigh as she sat down on a large rock. Yeah, I'm good, Happy agreed from atop her horse, petting its mane as she wandered over. Ah, the stone is glowing. Petra suddenly exclaimed, pointing behind Shay, which got the mercenary to turn around and look at the cliff. On the stone, 4 crests began to glow, before the rock crumbled, revealing a hole in between them. Walking over, Shay immediately reached into the hole. Partner, please at least be cautious when it comes to mysterious holes, Arvel muttered, only for Shay to cheer as she brought out a chalice. Woo. Guess you can add Relic Hunter to my list of achievements. Well, sounds like you're having fun, Yuri commented with a smirk, though are we sure it's the right item? Oh sure, it's totally the chalice of beginnings, and at the very least it's a highly magical relic, Arvel chimed in. Yeah, it's the chalice. Shay said with a grin. Well, I can't say for certain, Lindhart started, but I think if we found a chalice hidden behind a barrier decorated with the crests of the 4 apostles, guarded by golems that bore the crest of Syros, underneath the monastery, well, I think it's safe to assume. Nice. In that case, let's go. Shay declared, beginning the march back to Abyss. Well, someone is in a hurry. The sooner we are returning, the sooner we can help the professor, Petra said as she moved to catch up with Shay. It's a good point. And if nothing else, we should hurry back before it gets too dark, Dimitri added. Yeah, that'd probably be for the best. Come on, Coco, Happy called to her friend as she urged her horse to walk back to the tunnel, before pausing as the statues began to make a whirring noise. Huh. Blinking in confusion, Hilda looked up at the statues, before shrieking as they suddenly started going wild. What the heck? I thought we won already. Guess we gotta fight some more. Shay exclaimed, making an immediate about-face with a bright grin. Ha! I was hoping to beat up some of these things. Balthus yelled, until some nearby crashing of trees got everyone's attention as they saw a much larger statue emerging. Well shit. Ha, what's the problem, big guy? Are you starting to, was all Shay could say before she got scooped up by Balthus while he and everyone else began to run back to the tunnels. Hey. As the intelligent king of grappling, I say we save the fighting for when we aren't facing a giant. Balthus, I think that's the smartest thing you've said in your life. Hilda shouted, surprisingly keeping pace with the much taller guy. Hey, I've said plenty of smart things. Like the time I outwitted a bounty hunter by. I'm sure you can tell us all that fascinating story when we aren't in mortal peril. Yuri shouted over the crashing noises of the statues chasing them. We're almost to the tunnel, they won't be able to fit through the doorway. Dimitri shouted when they almost reached their goal. You better not jinx us, your highness. Claude responded as he ducked into the tunnel. If need be, you can leave me behind to distract them, Coco offered, which made Shay think it was a good thing the blonde was on a Pegasus with better survival instincts than her. Thankfully, her personality went back to normal as the steed dived into the tunnel. Ah, move quickly. The genius of the Novelli house cannot perish here. Ugh, why did I agree to this? Lindhart muttered as he entered last, breathing heavily. Cause of this thing. Holding up the chalice, Shay grinned. Now come on, we gotta dash. A loud crash got their attention as the group looked back towards the entrance and saw one of the statues crash into it, cracks forming around the doorway. I told you not to jinx us, Claude said as the massive statue backed up to ram again. Every cute lady for herself. Hilda shouted as she began to run again. Which was probably for the best as moments later the statue rammed in hard enough to break through the wall. Oh, wow, these gold ones are strong, Shay marveled. If she was being honest, a sight like that was even kind of intimidating. But it also made her really want to try taking it on. Hey, Yuri. Is now really the best time to talk? Yuri blinked as his hands moved on reflex to catch the chalice Shay just threw at him. What? Hold that for me. Partner, this is a terrible idea, Arvel warned as Shay turned to the golem with a grin, summoning her sword and pointing it at the big metal monstrosity. Hey big guy. You got a name. Shay, what are you doing? Dmitri exclaimed while Claude stared at his reckless friend in baffled exasperation. I don't think a giant statue is going to have a Agar then weaponry detected. Response selected, I bear the name Marcel, the golem answered, before twirling a golden spear in its twisty hand as it shone with a holy light, and your soul shall join all those who dared to profane these sacred grounds. Oh, big gal, not a big guy. Gotcha. Shay replied, before shifting away from the blast of golden light and darting in close to score a cut across the big golden lady's lion chest. Which was very hard to cut through with her standard sword, but surprisingly easier with her magic sword, which kinda made sense. Magic sword probably was made of better stuff than her regular steel. Now that she thought about it, what was her sword made out of? As she considered that question, Shay shifted around Marcel to slash at the lion lady's back, then looked at everyone else. What are you waiting for? I'll catch up later. She shouted, still cutting at the giant golden golem all the while. I am not thinking the professor will be happy if we leave her, Petra noted, drawing her sword again. And I am not leaving her to fend for herself. Dmitri shouted as he brandished his spear. In that case. Grinning, Balthus rushed forward, jumping up into the air and slamming his fist into the helm of Marcel. Bet you I can take this thing out first. You're on. Shay shouted back with her own grin. They can't be serious. Lindhart muttered in exasperation as Dida rushed forward without a word to aid Dmitri. Oh ho ho ho. Do not think I shall let this chance to show off the ingenuity of House Novelli slip by. Grabbing onto the reins of her Pegasus, Constance flew towards the battle, readying her own spell as she did. Great, they're all idiots. Holding back a sigh, Happy watched as the students fought Marcel, the mages among them hitting the golden golem with blasts of magic while the melee fighters either went for direct strikes or moved to the statue's blind spots. Guess she fits right in with us, Yuri noted, watching Shay fight alongside his classmates with some weary amusement. There they are. Blinking, Yuri turned around and found a group of mercenaries standing nearby. There it is. The boss was right, that purple-haired girl has the treasure thing. Yuri began to silently curse Eelfric for making things more difficult for him. That, and his hair was lavender, not just purple. How the hell did they find out about the chalice? Claude asked as he drew an arrow. I don't think that matters right now, Hilda grumbled, letting out a sigh as she brandished her axe. I should have argued harder to stay behind. I couldn't agree more, Linhard muttered, stepping next to Happy, or more accurately putting his fellow mage and her horse in between him and the mercenaries. Well, at least I found some kindred spirits, the redhead muttered before another battle began in the underground, this time between the backline and the bandits flanking them. Which was slightly easier than dealing with the golden golem, though the bandit brawlers still put up a decent fight. Ahahaha. Foolish statue, you are no match for the mystical might of Eep. Constance squeaked as her Pegasus reared back to avoid catching a spear of light in the side. How rude. You could at least let me finish. Interlopers shall not be tolerated, Marcel rumbled, her chest cracked and the metal that made up her body visibly denting and tarnishing under the students' onslaught. Thieves. Desecrators. Allies of the great enemy. You shall all perish. Great enemy. Dmitri muttered, a frown coming to his face, before grimacing as Didu stepped in front of him to catch a spear strike on his shield. Ah, thank you, Didu. It's fine, Your Highness. Just keep behind me. Great work, Didu. Just keep Marcel focused on you. Shay shouted, before shifting into her awakened form and hopping up the golem's spiky body to stab her magic sword straight into the lion lady's throat, piercing into metal instead of flesh. It still made the giant stiffen and twitch like someone who had been stabbed in the neck, so Shay was pretty sure she dealt a solid blow there. Heh, sorry about that, lion lady, but I'm pretty sure we need this chalice more than you do. The golem twitched again before it seemed to focus on Shay. AAA alert. Enemy identified. Agar the NSSS sorcerer, PRI priority 1. Xanadu shall be avenged. Shay blinked as the whole thing seemed to lock up, steam spilling from between its joints. What was? Partner, move. Arvel didn't normally shout, so Shay was already off the shoulder the instant their words registered. Which was a good thing, given a massive beam of light neatly seared through where she was just standing, taking a good chunk of Marcel's shoulder with it. Ah, hey. What was, oh shit. Even Shay could feel her bravado fade when she saw the other golden golem from outside making its way into the catacombs, alongside what seemed to be a squadron of lesser stone golems, all of whom seemed to be focused on her. Ah, right. We're running now. Yes, we are, Dmitri agreed, slowly backing up before he noticed Marcel turn her head in his direction, still apparently active and ready to fight. Shay, what in the world did you say to them? Not sure. She paused, then raised a hand in greeting towards the other lion lady. Hey, do you have a name too? Shay. What? I'm curious. She seems important. And the only response Shay got in response was another massive beam of light from the new lion lady, who barely missed thanks to being damaged. Right, running. Not waiting another moment, Shay began to run, leading the group that were fighting against Marcel to where everyone else was fighting bandits. Hey, boss, we're getting out of here. Balthus shouted, as he rushed past Yuri, shoulder-checking the bandit Yuri was fighting. Finally, Yuri huffed, before he began to run. Tally forth, comrades. Constance shouted, sending a small barrage of spells at the bandits to get them to back off enough for everyone to start running. Hey, get back here. One of the bandits shouted, not noticing the golems approaching them. THTH thieves, all allies of the Desecrators. Marcel declared as they descended on the bandits. Guess it was a good thing those bandits showed up, Yuri noted as screams of pain and several bloody breaking noises were heard from the tunnel behind them. Indeed. Those beings are not hitting two birds with one arrow, Petra agreed, getting Yuri to let out an amused huff. Yeah, but those things are going to still try to chase us down later, right? Happy asked. Oh, idea. Grinning, Shay turned around, and brought her hand up as she got a spell ready. Shay, what are you doing? Something smart. Something really stupid, Arvel muttered. Ignoring her partner's words, Shay began to form several dark spikes that shot out, stabbing into the walls and ceiling behind them. Is that safe? Before Hilda could finish her question, the spikes exploded. Almost immediately a plume of dust flew towards the group, making them cough heavily before Lindhart was able to clear the air with a spell. What was once an open tunnel was now collapsed, nary an opening in the rubble. There we go. Thank you, Shay, but perhaps you could warn us next time. Dmitri asked. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'd all appreciate a heads up before you cause a cave-in, Claude commented. It's fine, I made sure not to shoot near us, Shay responded. Now come on, we gotta go. Yuri, you still got the chalice, right? Do you think I would have lost it after all that? He asked, somewhat amused as he held up the chalice. Never hurts to make sure. Quite right, and with the chalice surely I am a step closer to restoring my house. Constance added, why I'm sure Edelgard is practically waiting for me to return with it. Shay gave her a side eye. I'm pretty sure she's probably busy making sure Bai is okay, actually. Oh, there is no need for that, your sister is still asleep. Huh? I mean, it's been a few hours so I'm sure she's awake. If I did not cast a sleep spell on her, she likely would be. What? Surely you understand. That poor girl looked absolutely exhausted. Trust me, that spell will ensure she has some proper rest and will wake up completely refreshed. Constance boasted. Huh. Well, if you say so, Shay muttered. She could admit that Bai looked like she needed her rest, though it still sounded inconvenient. Well, hopefully Byleth was awake by the time she got back. What do you mean they took Byleth? Edelgard met Shay's enraged gaze with a composed stare. She showed no hint of pain despite Shay's shout being loud enough that she was confident everyone in Abyss had heard it. A part of her idly noted this was the first time she had seen the possible Agarthan's awakened form this close to her, and that it was a decent sign that her emotions were genuine. I mean what I said. While you were gone, bandits attacked Abyss. I went out to deal with them, but apparently more attacked Leonie and Ash while I was gone and escaped with the professor. How are you being so calm? Shay shouted again. I've had nearly an hour to collect my thoughts, Edelgard responded, her hands clenched behind her back, including what seems to be their demands. Saying this, Edelgard held out a parchment, which Shay immediately snatched away. Quickly, Shay began to scan the paper to see what they wanted. We have abducted Cardinal Aelfric and the girl. We can guarantee their safety, for now. If you want to help them, meet us tomorrow evening in the ruins of the old chapel. Bring the chalice. Know that if you alert the knights, their lives will be forfeit. They want the chalice in exchange for Aelfric and Byleth. What? They have Aelfric too? Balthus asked in surprise. Taking in a small breath, Shay let go of the paper before walking over to Yuri. Hand it over. Excuse dash. Hand the chalice over. Now. Not that I'm disagreeing with you, Shay, but we do have to have a plan, Claude spoke up, before stiffening slightly as Shay glared at him for a moment. The plan is to hand the chalice over and save my sister. And we need to wait till tomorrow to do so. We don't know where the bandits are hiding, Edelgard pointed, keeping steady as Shay glared at her. It also said not to inform the knights, but I doubt we can keep the disappearance of a cardinal and the professor a secret. At the very least we must inform Lady Rhea, Dimitri stated, even if the knights don't get involved, surely she can provide some help. Letting out a frustrated noise, Shay tried to calm herself down. How are Ash and Leonie? Recovering, apparently the bandits had orders to not kill any of the students. Which begs the question of how they knew there were students down here. Huh? Didn't we fight some mercenaries before? Of course they'd know we're down here, Hilda said. We didn't leave any of those mercenaries alive. There was no way for word to spread. They also apparently knew Aelfric is a cardinal, Lindhart said, reading the fallen paper. That's supposed to be a well-kept secret in the church. So whoever these people are working for is well connected. Grumbling to herself as the students began to plan, Shay walked off. Despite the fight she had just been in, she was feeling restless again, and wanted to hit something again. Shay. Turning around, Shay found Edelgard following her. What do you want? I understand any apologies I have may ring hollow, but even so, you trusted me to keep the professor safe, and I failed you. However, I swear to you that I will make sure we save her. Shay sighed, trying not to snap at her. I also might have an idea of who took the professor. Huh? You do? Yes. The mercenaries mentioned a cult, and there were a group of dark mages working with them. While I cannot be certain, I've had to deal with a cult like that in the past. No matter what, I will not let those people harm her. Shay scratched the back of her head. Look, no offense, but it's kinda hard to take you on your word with what happened. I understand that. I would honestly be surprised if you did. Were I in your situation, I likely would have gone charging off on my own. That's weird. I don't know why, but something about you reminds me of Bai. I do. Yeah, both of you are pretty clumsy with your emotions, Shay teased, with a small grin to show she was joking, and you both get attached to people easily. Shay, this better not be another attempt to mock me. It's not. I'm just saying, you're hiding it well, but you're pretty angry right now, aren't you? I don't know what you mean, Edelgard responded, before Shay pointed down at her hands. Glancing down, Edelgard noticed that the palms of her gloves were stained with blood thanks to how hard she was clenching her fists. Must have not noticed, huh? Shay asked. That I did not, Edelgard responded. You should make sure to get someone to check that, Shay advised, for now though. I'm going to try and get some sleep. Yes, that sounds for the best, Edelgard agreed with a nod. I'll make sure to tell you what we're going to do. Thanks, Edelgard. Watching her walk off, Edelgard took in a quick breath. She needed to send a message soon, before anything could happen. Slowly drifting awake, Byleth became aware of two things immediately. The first being she was sitting up against a wall rather than a bed. The second being that she was currently tied up. Snapping fully awake as the second of those facts set in, Byleth tried to break free of the rope. Though that was easier said than done given that she was missing her weapons and also had a silence spell cast on her so her magic couldn't work. Looking around, she realized she was something that looked like a former storage room, some broken shelves nearby being the only thing in there with her. Old, you bring the wrong girl. Blinking as she heard Aelfric's voice, Byleth stopped moving as she tried to listen into what was happening. Hey, my men listened to your orders. You told us to bring the sleeping girl, and we did. Someone shouted back. And I specified a green-haired woman. Teal is a type of green. At that, Aelfric let out an aggravated sigh. No matter, we can get Citrai later. As long as we get the chalice then the plan can continue. At the mention of her mom's name, Byleth began to struggle again as she let out a muffled shout. Moments later, the door to the room opened, and Aelfric stood at the doorway. MNG. Byleth tried to shout at him as she struggled. You have to understand, I didn't mean for things to go like this. You just need to play along for a bit. Once I have the chalice, then I can bring Citrai back. The Cardinal smiled as best he could. It looked more like a strained rictus. You'll have your mother back. I know she'll be happy to see you. I just need a little more time. Byleth stared at him. It was strange. Aelfric should look completely insane, spouting lines like that, but he looked and sounded the same as he had when he talked to her beside her mother's grave. Somehow, that was scarier. Check the description for the links to the author.